March 3rd, 2014, this meeting of the Planning Board is called to order. I note we do have with us our colleagues from HDIC. So Greg, do you want to call your meeting to order too? Excellent. All right, the first item on the agenda is an query discussion with HDIC. Welcome back, John and Ronique. Good to see you again. And do you want to do a brief presentation, John, and field questions, or how would you like to proceed?
It's really up to you. I know that I gave the HDIC a presentation back in September, and then I believe Blake gave a presentation.
Yeah, Blake was here.
And this was intended as a follow-up to both committees, so it's up to the committees if you want to run through the presentation real quick again, and then ask questions.
I think we could waive the presentation. If it's going to be the same one.
It's the same presentation.
Greg, what do you think?
Yeah, I think
Does everybody agree?
everyone's pretty comfortable.
All right. Yeah, maybe if we ask a question that's related to a slide, you can bring the slide up as a point of reference. So.
Yes.
All right.
Move back on how this came to be and how we did it before.
Could you use the microphone, though?
I'm sorry, yeah, we're being televised. We are being televised tonight for everybody in the audience to know that. Okay.
I just suggested maybe we just quickly recap how this came to be.
Sure, go ahead. That sounds good.
All right, I'll stand.
If you're comfortable, you're welcome to sit.
Right now.
It's whatever you prefer. It's okay with the board.
Sure.
So for the record, I'm John Walsh, Vice President of Operations for Aquarion. And so how this all began, it was about, I believe, a year ago that it was brought to our attention that there was a plan, a conceptual plan at least, to further develop the South Shore Park. And we knew the town was putting together a sewer infrastructure plan. We felt it was the right thing to do the same thing for the water infrastructure. So we met with Roger Fernandez, who gave us the information on the properties for the expanded industrial park, and the particular information he gave us was the expected water demands for each of the built-out properties. From that, we developed an estimate of the projected water demands in total for the expanded park, and then looked at the alternative infrastructure approaches that might be implemented to meet those demands. And those demands are, it's in particular average day demands, maximum day demands like a summer demand, but also fire flow demands in the park. And what happens to drive a lot of the infrastructure is the need to meet fire flow requirements in the park. So we laid out, it was 4 different options for meeting those demands, as well as the cost estimates for those different options, and presented the results of that report to both HDIC and the Planning Board.
I guess I'll start with the first question. In your opinion, how much water do you lose in terms of unaccounted for water?
So the last set of data that we have officially is our 2012 data. We're putting out 2013 data together now for the state. And in 2012, we submit data to the state, and then they come up with the unaccounted for water number. And it was 21% unaccounted for water.
21%. Is unaccounted for, is that all due to infrastructure deficiencies?
No, unaccounted for water come from a variety of, or caused by a variety of different things. Leaks is one of them. Leaks out of the 190 miles of pipe that we have in the system. But meter errors can also cause what are called apparent losses. So the meters in customers' homes typically read low, especially after a couple of years of use. It's one of the reasons why we are required to replace them every 10 years. If water is going into homes that we're not measuring on those meters, it appears that we're losing that water that's unaccounted for. Also, the meters at our facility, if those meters are reading high, it gives us a false indication of the amount of water we're putting into the system. So for that reason, we test those meters once a year to make sure they're accurate. There can be water that's used through hydrants, so for regular firefighting purposes or filling of street sweepers, things like that. We try to work with the towns to make sure that every time they open a hydrant, they give us an estimate of the amount of usage. But that doesn't always happen, so that water is unaccounted for. I'm trying to think if there's a... Theft is part of it too, yes. There are times that people will bypass their meter. And there are cases where people are using our water and just don't realize that there's no meter in place.
I had a question on current demands and then projected demands for water, and also as a function of a percentage of the town's demands. I'm trying to get a sense of, trying to get a sense of what the commercial or the industrial park demands are now, and what are anticipated, and what would be the methodology to meet those demands.
Ronnie, do you want to flip to this slide that shows current in 2030? I know I can't read that from here. No, we're just using it for reference. Yeah, I'm not sure everyone can read that. But what it shows, I'm going to use my copy here. The current demand is on the far left, and these are average day demands. So again, in the water business, you look at average day demands, maximum day demands, your maximum days in the summer. Sometimes you also look at peak hour demands and fire flow demands. So this is average day demand. And what it shows here is under current conditions, we're around 3.2 to 3.3 million gallons a day that we deliver to the system. Or excuse me, that we withdraw from the environment to deliver to the system. The second two columns, what they show is that we project by 2030 we'll be up around 4 million gallons a day without the build-out of the South Shore Park. The column on the right is with the build-out of South Shore Park. And what's shown there in that text box is the estimated demand for South Shore Park, the build-out, is 140,000 gallons per day more on an average day than the park properties are using now. Also shown there is the Bristol Brothers property. The estimate for the build-out of that property right now is 190,000 gallons per day. So,
Ray, can you just finish the math on that? So you went from 3.2 to 3.3 up to 4 without the build-out
yeah,
of the South Shore Park, and then, I can't see, that's why I'm...
I think it's about 4.3 million gallons a day.
And that includes only South Shore Park, or is it South Shore Park and Bristol?
And Bristol.
Both, okay, thank you.
And how does that relate to the cap, the current yearly cap that we have now?
So the current cap is shown there as the red line. We're allowed to withdraw on an average day on a calendar year 3.51 million gallons a day from the environment.
So how does one make up the delta?
What would happen here, as demands increase in this system, there will be a point in time where we need to develop an additional source of supply. Developing the source of supply means finding a proper location for a well and actually finding a location that you can pull an adequate amount of water out. That's only part of the job, though. You also have to get it approved by the Department of Environmental Protection. And because of that permitting process, it's a lengthy process. Probably around 4 years to get it approved, because the DEP wants to ensure that the withdrawal of water does not adversely impact the environment. So they want you to look at the potential impact on wetlands and streams. What they also want is they want to ensure that you're at least making earnest efforts and moving toward their standards. And their standards include, they would like water systems to limit their usage to 65 gallons per capita per day. So for each person in the system, no more than 65 gallons per day. And they want you to be moving towards a 10% unaccounted for water number. So to get a permit, they're going to want to see those things are going in the right direction, to get a permit for additional water supply.
Is there an additional 20% available in the aquifer?
The Weir River subbasin, which is where all of our water comes from now, is considered a highly stressed basin. So I do not think the DEP is going to allow additional water to be pulled from that basin. There are areas of Hingham that are not within that basin, so there's opportunities to withdraw water from those other basins.
Saw Greg's hand.
Sure.
John, could you just quantify for us? I see you said 3.2, 3.3 million gallons per day right now. So that means there's somewhere between 2,000 and 3,000 gallons per day available in the system. Can you quantify what that would be in residential terms or commercial terms?
With that, the 200,000 gallons per day, if you divide it by the DEP goal of 65 gallons per capita per day, would mean water for an additional 3,000 people. So there's room under that permit limit. Ronit, I don't know if it's a slide back or forward that shows the history. So this is the history of water withdrawals from 2004 onward. And what you can see is we've been right below the 3.5 MGD limit. And when I say right below this, based on having 200,000 gallons per day room under there, it's room for 3,000 more people. But we've been able to stay underneath that limit since 2004, I think a couple of years before that as well. And that's a combination of activities that have helped us stay under that. I think one of them is the water restrictions that we implement during the summer.
Are there any options for other sources that are recycle-type sources where you might use roof water on the large area of roofscape that you could use for non-potable uses in a building, or conservation measures relative to fixtures and devices and toilets in terms of gallonage per minute kinds of devices, restrictors?
I think conservation is where things should be headed. And what's happened over the last 10 years is people have just, through new technology with low usage toilets and dishwashers and washing machines, we have seen a trend of downward consumption. And I think that also had a favorable impact on us in trying to stay underneath this 3.51 million gallon per day limit.
I think Sue had a couple questions. Sure. Do you mind coming up to the mic, Sue, just so the people on TV, people watching from home can hear it?
Sue Sullivan, Governor Andrew Road, HDIC. John, there's been a lot of talk about the loss of water, unaccounted for. And I guess I look at, and I happen to be at the forum today, and those are big numbers, 21%. When you think of if we have a 5 million gallons, and you're losing 1 million, or a little over 1 million every time. And you're trying to get down to that 10%. Okay, now I know there was discussion about whether the 10% is attainable, but that's the goal by the state. And I guess I look at it, I go, if we're at 3.2 now, and with all the build out, we're at 4.3 million, right? And I look at that, if we were down around the 10% as opposed to at the 21%, we're talking about a 500,000 gallon difference. That actually gets us almost back down to our 3.51 cap. Does that make sense? So I guess I look at it and I go, it seems like such a huge leap right now that, you know, when you look at it on the board, you go, okay, wow, we're going to be so far over what the gold cap is. But if we really did, or were able to capture that water that we're losing, we wouldn't be. So I guess it's more of a perception than a question, but I would think from our perspective, we need to have everything being done to recapture that water.
I agree.
Because otherwise, the four scenarios, and I wasn't here, and I apologize for not being here for the first part of this, and I don't know, the decision was made not to show all the slides, but the four different options of how we can get more water are all pretty costly options, some less costly or more costly than others. But it seems like a fifth option is, what's the cost of recapturing as much water as we can?
Oh, all of those options, they exclude the cost of the water main. All of the options that we laid out are all about getting the water to the industrial park and getting it through the industrial park. What was excluded from the presentation is the actual new source. So the cost you see in the presentation does include the cost for a new source. And one of the reasons for that is, you're right. In this industry, when you're talking about needing additional water and a new source, the first place that you look is unaccounted for water, because it generally is the least expensive way of solving a problem like this. I know there's been some discussion of replacing water mains as the solution to that. The reality is 190 miles of water main. You'd have to replace a lot of that water main to hope to get down to, say, even 15% unaccounted for water through a water main replacement program. So we've got about 80 water systems over 3 states. And we have an unaccounted for water program, and we look at all of the aspects, all the unaccounted for water categories that I mentioned before. We look at, on a monthly basis, all of those systems to identify where there are potential problems. So if we think that there's leaks, we do leak detections. We do 2 a year in this system. And then and spot leak detection if we think there's a particular problem. We happen to find, I believe it was 11 leaks in our latest leak detection, and we're working on repairing all of those. The cold weather inhibits us from repairing all of them in the winter. But we look at, again, customer records to make sure customers haven't dropped off out of our system for some reason and we're missing their usage, or that people aren't bypassing a meter all of a sudden. And what we found over doing this for a number of years is that we typically are able to solve the unaccounted for water problem by those activities as opposed to a large water main replacement program. Water main replacement has a place in this whole effort, but it's more of a longer-term strategy. It's not going to bring you down from 21% to 10% over a year, 2 years, or even 5 years. It's more those other activities where you find a leak that has been, hiding in the system for years.
John, one thing we didn't mention is service leaks. Leaks on the customer side
Yes.
can contribute, so they're not on the main in the street. I know I'm not on the mic. Hopefully you can hear me. So it's service leaks. I mean, we do a number of service leaks repairs a year, and those sometimes take time to surface and find.
So this is the service, is the pipeline from our water main into a customer's home. We own the portion to the curb, to their property line. Customers own it from their property line in. So our leak surveys include our water mains and the service lines, and there are times where I identify a leak on a customer as part of the service line.
The main breaks as well. contribute to unaccounted for, but that goes to part of the capital efficiency plan and repair and maintenance, prudently.
But Sue, I want to make sure I answered your question. The 21% is unacceptable by our standards, and we believe it is a high priority to address that problem for a variety of reasons, and one of them is this reason here.
Sarah, you have a couple questions?
Yeah, I have two questions, John. One of them is that, when Linden Ponds went online and the water company couldn't provide them with enough water, they made a plan with Cohasset to borrow water. That year is a 20-year plan. What happens if Cohasset says, we're not renewing that? How does the Aquarian deal with that?
I would have to check that contract. I don't know how that contract is structured. I believe it's unlikely that DEP would say it couldn't continue, but your question is regarding Cohasset and whether they would.
Well, yeah, and I think when it was signed, we were surprised that they could make a 20-year deal. It seemed to us challenging for us if Cohasset decided, in their interest, they couldn't share that water because they didn't have enough for their own town. And I think that would be where Cohasset would make their decision. Well, we have to provide water for our people, and so we can't lend it to you. So I'd be curious if Aquarian has a backup plan, because that could happen, I think.
I think Cohasset, if they're, for their water supply planning efforts, they would need to include, because of their commitment, they would need to include Linden Ponds in any of their water supply planning. But it's an excellent question, because it's a 20-year agreement.
Right. If they had made a contingency plan, it wouldn't be a 20-year agreement. It would be we give you this water for
100 years.
Yeah, for as long as you need it, as long as you're there. My other question is, having gone on the Aquarian website a couple weeks ago, it's just very, as a taxpayer who pays some of the highest water rates in the country, to see the first page be about shareholder profits is very disturbing to me as a taxpayer, because I realize that those profits for the shareholders for Aquarian are coming out of my pocket. And that's, to me...
Is that the case on the website?
Yes. That's what I saw, a big graph about how great the profits were this year recently for shareholders.
I'm going to have to check that. I'm familiar with the website and I've never seen... That was in Aquarian, www.aquarionwater.com?
Well, maybe it's your parent company. Is that Macquarie? Macquarie. Could have been Macquarie, but whatever. It feels, sort of, wow. I want the attitude of the water company to be, how do we provide the best water for the eternity of the town of Hingham, not how do we make money off the backs of the taxpayers.
Yeah, and that, as soon as I leave this meeting, I'm going to check, but I am positive that our website has never shown profits in the front
Macquarie
page of the
shows that,
website.
Macquarie is your parent company, so it's the same thing. What?
I have to say, as a taxpayer, I wouldn't think to go that extra step.
Okay.
If I'm going to the water company site, I'm going...
All right, well, next time go to Macquarie, and you'll see the profits that Macquarie is making from all of their ventures, one of them being Aquarian Water.
Yeah, if you're interested now, you can go to their website. I'm saying, as a normal taxpayer, looking at the website, that wouldn't enter my mind. So I think if you're looking for it, it's there.
Excuse me?
I say if you're looking for it, it's there. I felt like I needed to, because I would never even think to go to the other website.
Well, and I don't know what brought me to Macquarie, except that I was curious. I think as I went to Aquarian, what else Macquarie owned. It's a worldwide company, I think based out of Australia maybe, or somewhere foreign, and wonderful. I don't want to cast aspersions on Australia, but it is, the whole profit-sharing aspect of a water company, I guess, is disturbing to me in my little town here.
In terms of the profit, I think I do need to address that issue, because profit is brought up like it's a bad word. The profit is the return on equity. That's another word I hear too. That return, Macquarie invests in this water system. So we fund all the infrastructure here through the Macquarie investing money or debt issuances. And it's usually about a 50-50 split between the two. And the town funds their capital activity with debt as well. So, and there's a cost to that debt. You pay an interest payment on that debt. We pay an interest payment on our debt. The profit that folks are speaking about, that's the interest payment on the equity portion. So generally, if people don't think Macquarie should be making an interest, a return on their investment, you would also have to think that you would not want the folks who lend money to the town for building schools, et cetera, your bond issuances, you would also have to make the same argument that they should not get paid an interest payment. Last year in 2012, the return to Macquarie in the system was 3% on their investment. This year, it's less than 1%. So this is where I do stand up and say that is not oversized gains. It's an interest payment on an investment that they've made. And they're not looking at year-to-year gains. They are long-term investors. So I'll leave it at that.
I just have a few questions following up on some of the things you said. The 65-gallon per person per day goal for getting this additional permit is relative to what number now, where we are now?
We are, as of 2012, we're at 66 gallons per capita per day. In prior years, we were at 65 or below. So we bounce around that target.
So it wouldn't be hard to get from 66 to 65, or would it?
No. I don't think that goal is a particular issue for this system.
Okay. And on Sarah's point about Cohasset, can one of these sources of water being more of these contracts of buying water from Cohasset or from a town nearby, that rather than identifying a new source of water to develop?
If we need an additional source, I believe we would talk to neighboring towns.
But that would still have to get the 4-year permitting process?
There's a permitting process because it's moving water from one basin to another, and also the DEP would want to see that the neighboring community had not only adequate water supply now, but for at least the term of the contract, and very likely beyond that. And they're going to want to make sure that there's no risk of that town violating their permit limit. So there's a lot of protective features put in place by DEP.
Because Linden Ponds isn't built out right now, so is the water that we've bought from Cohasset, going to be incremental to meet the needs of the additional build-out? Where does you know what I'm saying?
The way that the contract works with Cohasset for Linden Ponds is on a daily basis, the amount of water that goes into Linden Ponds is measured, and we run the interconnection to offset that daily amount. So on a daily basis, it's a matching of the demand.
Of the demand.
Yes.
Okay.
May I ask you just a follow-up, Judy? On the looking for new sources of water, that sort of 4-year plan, have you started that process? I mean, is that a process that you're starting at this point?
We have done what I'll call desktop analysis of locations within the borders of Hingham that are outside of the Weir River subbasin that are look like good candidates for drilling test wells. We have aquifer mapping. So what you look for is properties that aren't developed where there's high-yielding aquifers.
Still in the town, but not in the Weir River watershed?
Yes, yeah.
And then, as far as conservation goes, I know that there are changes in household appliances like toilets and washing machines and all of that have contributed to the conservation efforts. But and that you have water restrictions in the summer. But do you have any kind of thought of maybe splitting meters so that outdoor water is treated differently than indoor water? Or I know National Grid sends out a monthly or a quarterly, this is how well you're doing relative to your neighbors, and it gets me very competitive. I don't, I want to go from, 18 to, I'm 18 of 100, so, and I'm trying to work my way up, so I don't know where you are. But so do you do things like that to to just conserve water, because I know it's kind of a little bit of a paradox because you make money selling water, so it's hard to imagine that you would tell people not to buy as much.
No, we firmly believe in conservation, and the reason we believe in that is if there is not adequate conservation, then there's a need for additional water supplies, which are expensive, and that drives up rates. When you have to invest in new infrastructure, like a new well, it drives up rates, and that is not good for business. We don't necessarily want to see rates increase. The feedback we've gotten from customers is that they do not want to see rate increases. So our preference is if we can avoid the investment in additional infrastructure, we much prefer that route. So your question, though, on
Outdoor water, indoor water, what
Yeah.
kinds of things besides people buying new pipes and new appliances?
There's a conservation block rate as well that was intended to encourage people to use less, because if they go above 1,200 cubic feet, they're charged at a little bit of a higher rate. And that was as of 2009. So when you go over, and oftentimes people that are irrigating in the summer will go over that 12 TCF, and so it's encouraging people to, by using less, they're also spending less, if that makes sense. They're paying a lower rate in their bill.
Up to the 1,200.
Correct.
Well, they pay the regular rate.
They pay the regular rate.
Up to the
and so
12.
it's considered a conservation block rate. It was approved by the state. So it's one way,
Yeah, it's one of the,
it is one way to encourage.
I believe the DEP would prefer that people implement that standard. It's called inclining block rates, so as you use more water, you pay more for that additional water. I think so in terms of splitting meters, having a domestic use meter and irrigation meter, I haven't seen that in the industry. Where things are headed more so in Massachusetts is having mandatory water restrictions every summer, so on a schedule. There are a number of towns that, starting sometime in May and through the end of September, there are mandatory restrictions on irrigation systems, and that is the direction DEP is headed, trying to get more and more towns to implement practices like that.
Question from the HJC, go ahead. You can, up the mic, oh, thanks. Okay.
I'm Penny Coyle from the Weir River Estuary Park Committee, and I wondered, I never thought about this before, but you're talking about splitting, your water for indoor use and outdoor use. Do you know that we pay the same, we use the same water. We pay to have water treated for drinking, and then we water our grass with it. I never thought of that before. And wash the car. Just wanted to bring it up.
So, come on up.
Sorry. A couple more questions, Sean. First, when you talk about the alternate sources for additional water and all, and you mentioned that we can't go for it in the basin, probably.
Mm-hmm.
The charts that you had shown with the additional potential water sources and all, were those outside the basin?
Yeah, I don't know that, we didn't show any charts here.
I thought one of your charts indicated an additional water source.
It was a tank, I think, one of them
Yeah.
had. And the sources, I think we just spoke to them being in the area coincidentally of the South Shore Park.
Okay.
Some basin that probably.
But that would be out of the basin, so it wouldn't be able to, okay, that's
Correct.
the question. Okay, second question would be, the area is made up of Hingham and Hull, and obviously, both have needs, but not necessarily the same needs. In terms of the infrastructure and all, and we're talking about the unaccounted for water and all, do you have it broken down as to, between the towns, is there more unaccounted for water in one town or another? Is there, I mean, we can't, I guess I'm saying we can't look at this in a vacuum kind of thing, and also, we have to make sure too that Hull, governance and all that, that we're not just, I mean, I don't know how I'm trying to say it, but I guess I feel like we need to look at both towns together in order to know, because we're looking at what we're doing for development. We don't know if they're doing any development, or if they're looking, we're looking only at, if we do this to this park, this to that. But is there any capturing of information of what you have for their infrastructure improvements and all down there?
So in terms of that last question there, to our knowledge, there is no planned significant development in Hull. On the issue of unaccounted for water by town, we don't measure the amount of water going into Hull. And without that measurement, you can't do the calculation of unaccounted for water by town. But there are, one of the activities that you can do to solve an unaccounted for water problem is called zone metering. And you actually separate parts of your system, like separate a town and meter all the water going in. And then you can calculate that unaccounted for water. The reason you do that zone metering is if you have a particularly pesky unaccounted for water problem that you can't find the leak. Typically, it's one. In my experience, it's one large leak, and what happens is the water is leaking out of the pipe. It's in sandy soils, and it goes down into the ground instead of coming up. And the way we find leaks is we listen on, there's listening devices that you put on valves and hydrants, and sometimes you can't hear those leaks. So you do a zoning program, and then at night you watch the flows going into different zones, and you can tell from that data where you might have a problem, but you still have to find the leak. Even if it's an area that's 20, 25 miles of main, you still have to be able to hear that leak to find it. So it can be an arduous task, but we've been pretty successful in finding those problems, and we just need to put our efforts here to reduce that number.
So as far as development, in the 5 years that I've been with the company, there's not been a tremendous amount of development. I don't know that there's a lot of developable land in Hull. And to my understanding, they are trying to work on some type of master plan for the town. They don't currently have a master plan in Hull. So that just gives you more information.
I had a follow-up question on the infrastructure and the aging infrastructure, and what is the current plan for replacing or repairing infrastructure and before it gets to some of the 100-year-old plus infrastructure that we have. It's ironic that some of the wood, I guess, pipes and some of the lead pipes are better than some of the iron and the other magic materials we've used, like asbestos pipes and things. Mm-hmm. But I was wondering, what is that plan for sourcing out or for evaluating and analyzing the condition and then replacing those on a planned basis?
Well, we have what's called a capital efficiency plan that evaluated all of the pipes in our distribution system. So we break out the 190 miles of pipe by segment. Each of those segments is evaluated on a variety of characteristics: the number of breaks, the material, the soil conditions in the area of the pipe, the age of the pipe, and all of that goes into a model. Or what's that?
Critical area too?
Yes, in critical area. And all of that goes into a model or a matrix, and what comes out of there is a ranking of each segment of pipe. And the pipe segments that have a higher score are the ones that are more in need of replacement. So that, what came out of that capital efficiency plan is, I believe it's 29 prioritized projects. Some of them are higher priority than others. And our intent is to, it's all water main replacement projects. Our intent is to move through in a very prudent manner, replacing those mains that are on that list. And every couple of years, we update the model with new information. In particular, water main breaks. As they break, we input that information into the model. But also, we learn more about the system as we operate it. You learn more about soil conditions, more about the robustness of some of the pipe that's in the ground, some of the pipe materials. So, does that answer your question?
Yeah, could you give just kind of a percentage of how much is replaced per year or per time interval?
I don't think I can do the calculation. So we replace around, I think it's around 2,000 feet of water main a year. I don't know what percentage that is, but it is, it's a very low percentage. It's a fraction of a percent. The thinking in this industry used to be that water mains would last 100 years. And that is, so some people would just base their water main replacement program on the age of pipe. And what's happened over time is people recognize that's an extremely expensive way, and maybe not the smartest way to replace pipe. You've got to look at other factors. There's water mains that I've seen in the ground that are 100, 120 years old that are in great condition because they're old cast iron, really thick walled pipe, good amount of flow going through the pipe, lots of flow helps the pipe stay clean. And then I've seen water mains that are cement water mains that are 40 years old that are sitting in poor soils and peaty soils that are wet, and the pipes after 40 years are not in good condition and they need to be replaced. It is a challenge in the industry to replace an adequate amount of water main. I think it's recognized nationally. And one of the things that we have seen implemented in other states, I think it's in 15 states now, is what's called Water Infrastructure Conservation Adjustment, so WICA for short. So the WICA adjustment, what it does is, it was developed originally in Pennsylvania. The goal was to encourage the replacement of water mains because states have recognized that not enough water mains being replaced. There was a bill introduced in Massachusetts this legislative session. We've recently asked that that bill be held in committee because there needs to be more discussion with the towns about how the bill would be implemented here in Massachusetts. Because ultimately what it does is it would result, as you invest in infrastructure, and regardless of who invests, whether it's a town or a private company, as you invest in infrastructure, rates will increase. The goal of the WICA programs, one of the goals of the WICA programs, is to provide more transparency with the communities that are impacted by it. In particular, allowing communities to weigh in on projects before you actually do them. And to, for towns to get a better understanding of the need for water main replacement. So it's a matter of balancing and providing enough information to the communities to say, here's the need, and here's the associated cost, and then it's discussion of whether or not it makes sense to move ahead with the projects.
Can we have time for a couple more? I saw Greg's hand go up a couple minutes ago. You guys have another question?
No, okay, thank you.
John, in your last presentation, you had discussed that the infrastructure costs were going to be somewhere around $5 to $7 million to bring I'm talking about South Hingham now. Mm-hmm. So to bring the infrastructure to South Hingham would be about $5 or $7 million, and a new source maybe 2 or 3, somewhere about there. As you know, the HDIC is very interested in seeing South Hingham developed. I guess how would you suggest that get paid for? And I guess the follow-up question is, if we were to build the infrastructure, do you feel confident you could get the water?
So in terms of how the infrastructure would be paid for, the way that we are governed by the Department of Public Utilities, we are not allowed to invest in infrastructure for new development. And the reason for that is the cost of that would then be borne by existing customers through their rates. So what occurs under the DPU's oversight is that the developer has to pay for whatever infrastructure is needed. So if there's a water main extension that's needed, the developer has to pay for it. If there's a pump station or a tank that's needed, the developer or developers have to pay for that infrastructure. And again, it's so that new infrastructure is not built on the backs of existing customers. In terms of water supply, your question of how confident we are in being able to find a new supply, I think again the first step is the Anaconda for water. We have an opportunity there to provide additional water simply by doing a better job reducing that Anaconda for water. If the needs of the system go beyond that, we will be able to find additional sources of supply. There are aquifers in other areas of the town that, at least based on the mapping we've seen, look like they will be productive aquifers. But we've always had success in finding new sources of supply.
Any last questions from the HTIC? Brenda, you want to add something? Go ahead, yeah. Wrap it up.
Sure. I'll do the mic for the viewers at home. So I'm Ronique Goldstein with Aquarian Water Company, their manager of community relations, and I wanted to extend an invitation to the planning board and to the viewers at home to our environment. It's not it's actually a partnership with the Ware River Estuary Park Committee, the Ware River Watershed Association, both the land trusts of Hingham and Hull, and Straits Pond Watershed Association. It's a joint effort. This is now the third Ware River Watershed Forum, and it was postponed due to weather in February. It's rescheduled for next Wednesday, March 12th at South Shore Country Club, 6:30 p.m. And I think that all that we're speaking to this evening will be very relevant for that discussion, and we hope that, if not all of you, some of you can make it. There'll be a panel of experts, including John Walsh from Aquarian Water. Mary Griffin, I believe, is the Commissioner of Fish and Game. Samantha Woods, who is one of the founders of the Ware River Watershed Association. Matt Zeiper from the CPC is going to assist in facilitating the night, so we're pretty excited about the event. I did my plug. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Well, I want to thank the HTIC for joining us tonight. I want to thank John and Ronit for coming again. We appreciate it, and forward to continue our conversation.
All right, thank you very much for having us.
Thanks for coming again.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is our discussion of master plan and goals. And I was just going to ask Mary to let us know where we're at with everything. I know that Gary did submit some comments. And,
Correct. We did, if you'll recall, when we last spoke about the master plan goals, it was January 27th. And we received a draft of the goals and a draft of the updated section that the MAPC was working on with us. And board members were asked to think about what edits, if any, we would like to make to this document for the MAPC. And we did receive comments from Gary. I did forward that to everyone on the board, and we have those laid out in front of you tonight. So before the board is to determine, are you in a position now where you would like to update these draft goals? If so, I would get the comments to the MAPC by this Friday. They need to finalize this document. If additional work is needed, then, just because the MAPC is wrapping up their work doesn't mean that you're done with the plan. It's a living, breathing document. There's other conversations for the board to work on. But that's kind of where we're at with it tonight for the board.
So what we have to decide tonight is whether or not we want to forward what we have to MAPC. They finalize and send it back to us, but that's really not the end of it. We can still digest things and figure out where we want to go from there. Is that correct?
Correct.
And I also want to note on the record, too, we did receive a citizen letter today from Beth Rockoff. And that was emailed out to everybody. Hope everyone had a chance to read it. So that will be entered into the record as well.
Correct.
Okay. All right. So what are everybody's thoughts on it? I think the suggestion of sending what we have right now to the MAPC is probably fine. It's not final at all. Just they finish up their work, they send it back to us, and then we can kind of just continue a discussion about it and finalize things maybe sometime in the late spring, really.
Well, it would be final in this. So if we give them comments now, it would be final. So then in the spring, you could certainly revise the goals again. You can revise the goals as frequently as you want.
I guess my thought was in the, just in the derivation of the comments, I looked at my notes from the 2 hearings, and I looked at my notes and the notes that were provided at our hearing in January. And when I was looking through the summary of the goals that were presented to the board, my sense is that we probably needed some more specificity as to noting some of the characteristics and some of the goals and objectives that keep Hingham uniquely Hingham. I saw a lot of the goals were somewhat generic, and I thought that we should probably flesh them out. And we've been talking a lot about balancing community and growth, and at a lot of our meetings, and it was what I heard also at our hearings on the master plan. So I thought we should say that. If we're looking at, I thought it was also helpful in comparing their suggestions that were listed in white, in black and white, and then the gray attachments, which were the older narrative elements of the existing 1999-2000 master plan. It was good to see them in context and comparison. So my thought was that, in feedback to the consultants, it would just give them a sense of some of that commentary in response to their presentations, and also in response to what I heard from people at the hearings.
Anyone else?
Did you want to say something, Sarah?
I think the only thing I want to say is that I still feel we need to go through it more with a fine-tooth comb. I think we went over a lot of concepts, and I didn't submit comments for this hearing, so I know that I'm negligent in that. But I'm not quite ready, but I understand their time frame, so I'm conscious of that. I don't quite understand, Mary, the difference between we can keep editing it, but that it's done in this form. So can you explain that to me?
They have a grant-funded effort, and what they would like to do is to finish their process and to say, here are the goals revised as through this process. And you have a product now that, if you didn't revise it anymore, that's what they would say. Here is where the planning board left off. They're already revised because, in a way, you've changed the formatting to line up with this Planning for Balanced Growth Act. Yeah. So now you're down to exactly what you're saying, Sarah, the fine-tuning. So it's for the board to decide if you want to forward on additional comments at this point, or let the MAPC effort be finalized in the form that it was last time you saw it. These are still your master plan goals. So it's not that you can't revise them additionally or edit them. It's just that MAPC needs to put the period on their effort.
So I have an idea, and I don't know if it would work for them or for this board, but because this is all funded by grant dollars, so they've basically run the course of the work that they're going to do for them, we could adopt that as a draft with a plan over the next 6 months to go section by section and have an in-depth conversation, because I also did not send comments because it just seemed so overwhelming to do it myself at home when there's 5 people with different opinions on what it should be. I think that it's, like, I see all of this red that Gary wrote in here, and while I appreciate all his time for doing this, and I'm sure it's great, I can't go, oh yeah, great, yes, yes. I mean, I think it should be a conversation where everybody's involved in the conversation. So what I would like to see is a plan that says this is a draft, and, we understand that it's an interim document. And then we're going to start, maybe how many sections? There's 8 sections. For the next 8 meetings, we're going to spend a half an hour on each one of the 8 sections, or something to that effect, so that we can come up to a document that we really feel is ours and specific to us. So it would involve some more time, and I know we've spent a lot of time on this, but it seems worth it.
I'm comfortable having Gary's comments as part of that final, it's not a final document, but as the working document that we then work from, because he put the effort into it, and I like a lot of them. So I'm fine with them going forward into that, making the recommendation they get added, and then we can, continue to have a conversation about how well we like them, because I do agree that it makes the document much less, Gary's comments make the document much less generic. Feels like there's more Hingham in it.
But I haven't even read them, so I would be reluctant to say, sure, just change it, with these comments. I mean, if it's a draft, I don't see the problem with just saying, okay, we'll do section 1, we'll read it carefully and say, yeah, that's great, let's do it. And then we say, okay, that part's done, then do section 2, and just sort of do it so that we're reading what's going into it.
What I was trying to get to was, in reading the master plan, and I understood from the constraints of the grant and timing and what have you, they wanted to have feedback so they could move forward with a draft commitment, and I felt that I wasn't comfortable going that far, because I feel that the document needs more specificity so that it's more Hingham-centered, because we're talking about Hingham's master plan. And I think that, I read it several times, and I read also the original master plan several times, and I was also involved in some of that way back, and the discussions way back on that, and happened to have some of the earlier notes and read some of the focus. What were people thinking? What was their philosophy, and where did they see the town? And I wouldn't feel comfortable letting that draft go ahead without commentary and without requested edits and changes, because I don't think it's fully reflective of the hearings and the discussions we had. And they did a good job. I'm not saying that, but I'm just thinking I saw a number of areas that I wanted to comment on, that I did comment on, that I felt, I'm not saying it goes in verbatim. I'm just saying I'd like to see the draft process continue, but I wouldn't feel comfortable releasing that until we had that continued input. I don't think it's ready. And I don't know where that stands in terms of your constraints, in terms of the grant, but...
Well, I think
the grant's done.
I think, like what Mary was saying, if we send it back to MAPC with or without your comments, and I'm kind of in the middle here. I read all your comments too. I like them, and I'm comfortable with inserting them in at this point. But we could also keep them out too, if that works. But they send it back to us, and then we continue the work. But I guess MAPC's up against a deadline where they have to finalize their drafts, right?
Right, the grant is done, but what we will have is, an electronic document, either with these incorporated or not, and we can certainly schedule maybe an hour, or half an hour is kind of ambitious for some of these conversations, but we could certainly schedule a block at every meeting or every other meeting to tackle one of the sections in depth, and I can provide you that section ahead of time for you to look at again and have a dialogue about it.
Well, I was thinking also it might be helpful if they got a sense of some feedback. You know, we had a meeting where we did some conversational feedback. It was relatively short. We hadn't really seen the master plan, so it was, you know, we needed time to digest it. So it seems to me, we're not saying incorporate everything verbatim, but I think I would approach it that I think they need to see some kind of feedback that they could get back to us on, you know, because they would have some, you know, it's a dialogue.
We have to have more money. We have to get more money if we want to do that, because they've, you know, spent the money that we have been allocated, I think.
And the grant was to update the goals and objectives, but not the full master plan update.
Right.
So the full, you know, looking over each of the sections and determining if they're still accurate and are there any other recommendations. That's, you know, the purview of the board, and/or, you know, if we had...
Which we could do separately, but in terms of getting a sense or a draft, an acceptable draft on the goals and objectives, if that seems to me that would be part of the grant, to distill or digest some of this and get back to us on the objectives. Seems to me that would be within the purview of what the grant had outlined, at least as how I remember the grant was written.
Well, they did come to us in January, and they were supposed to be done by February, and then we didn't get back to them. You know, it's kind of extended a little. I told them we were going to have a conversation tonight, and I promised that if we had feedback that we wanted in here, I would get it to them by this Friday. Otherwise, this will be kind of a final draft in its version right now, and then future changes to it will be done by the board. So that's kind of where we're at.
So I'll put forward that I'm comfortable adding Gary's changes into that updated draft, shall we call it.
Can I say something, though, about that, Sarah, before you make a motion to discuss it? If we just take an example, like I have the unmarked draft here and this marked here. I see that Gary added a lot in each section about the character of Hingham, but I think that there's a stylistic difference here, which is we could have a paragraph at the beginning that says all of these goals intend to maintain the character of the town of Hingham and describe that character in a lot of detail. But when I look at like 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, some of the detail in each one of those kind of conflicts or duplicates. It's not as, by putting little bits of it in each one of those, I don't think we're getting a clear sense of that as an overall articulated goal, and then we're losing some of the oomph of each one of those specific things because of all the description in there. So if you look at the original, the way it's written, each one of the goals is just a sentence, and I think that makes it very clear to the reader what exactly it is our goal is. You don't have to read a paragraph to know what the goal is. So, whereas I like what Gary wrote, I think that all of the part about the character is really important to include in the master goal. I have a real difference of opinion on the style, and I'd like to see kind of that character language as one overarching goal and go back to this kind of, we're going to have this, that's going to be this. We're going to have this, it's going to be this, so that it's easier for people to understand what our goals are without having to spend that much time on it.
So what if we did this? What if we sent this with the, basically the description that the content is something that we are in support of, but that the actual stylistic aspects of how it is written, since they wrote that draft, they could translate the content of this into their stylistic format of that, but at least we get the intent to them. I'm concerned with not having the intent be transferred. I'm not saying it has to be written like this.
But for example,
this is just how I wrote it.
Let's say you take 1.2, right? Why, the part that you wrote, why wouldn't that whole paragraph just be an introduction to Hingham's master plan goals? Why is that a specific way of promoting balanced growth. You see, so.
I put it in there because I was trying to follow their outline, and I put it in under land use goals, general land use goals. It wouldn't have to be there. It could be up in the front in 1.0, which talks about the vision statement, or talks about the, some of our overall goals. One thing that I didn't see, and one of the people who attended one of our hearings, Faith Burbank, was very articulate. She basically made a very clear point that the master plan draft articulates a lot of the specifics, but it didn't really talk about an overall set of goals and a vision statement. And I thought that was a point very well taken, and so I was responding to that. So you could...
So that's 1.0, articulate a vision statement for Hingham, and let's work on 1.0, this overarch, let's take a step back and work on a vision statement. If we look at our master plan and we don't like the vision statement as it exists, let's work on that vision statement. But when we work on these goals, let's have real clear goals. So when you look at 1.3 and 1.4, the new 1.3 and the 1.4 versus what they did. So theirs says 1.3, increase the amount of protected open space, period. Okay? My question was, really, we now have 31% protected open space. Aren't we at the stage where our increase should be for specific reasons rather than just an overall increase?
Well, I think that's what...
Wait, so then you
Yeah.
put 1.3 and 1.4, and 1.3, you talk about the aquifer and all of that, but then in 1.4, you say again, increasing it. So maybe like 1.3 and 1.4 are just increase the amount of open space for the protection of the aquifer, for connecting existing open spaces, and to preserve vistas.
Yeah, that's...
You know what I'm saying?
I mean,
Just so
that's
that it's not so
No, and I think that goes to the point... that-
conversational.
Yeah, I think the format might be a little specific. It might be more spelled out than what their format or their style. I agree, but I think you can distill it down. I think the content needs to be there. I mean, when I initially read their narrative, and where it was just a 4 or 5 word sentence of, protect open space, I thought it was important to point out in this current state of play where we are now, why would we want to protect that open space? It's not just because we want to buy open space. It's because there are some clear issues of, for example, in South Hingham, if 20% of the aquifer is impervious, paved or roof area, it seems to me that if we're planning on open space purchases, we should respond to the fact, as the Aquarian folks said, that, we're in a stressed aquifer area and basin, and if we increase that stress by developing certain areas, we should also be very careful on the balance of making sure that we're protecting the aquifer and recharge protection. The best way to do that is to buy open space. So you don't have to state it like this.
I'd like to go back to Judy's point about, isn't 31% of open space, protect open space enough, and we have to really focus it. I think that our job as planning board members is to reflect the attitude of the town, and without question, surveys show again and again that is the major concern for Hingham voters, is to acquire open space. So I don't think we can decide 31% is enough. We're focus it on just on such and such, but surveys show that's what the people of Hingham want.
So here's the thing. What you just said to me drives the importance of us talking about this more before we send any language to MEPC, and I would love to just say, we're going to put this on hold right now, and we're going to spend a little time with what you're telling us and the documentation that you've sent us, because they sent us a full packet of all the surveys that were done, and then we can look through here and say, oh, look at this. This is what they did this survey. They talked to 350 people. They did all of this, and this is the raw data, and this is what we're inferring from it. And then make sure that what's written here actually is, because I didn't see that this time. I know in the past people have said they want open space, and I know we've bought a lot of open space since then. So then let's look at the data today, and let's do this so that it's meaningful to each of us, and reflects this tremendous amount of work that MAPC did. So anyway, I won't say another thing. I don't think we have spent enough time looking at these things in detail, looking at this background. I think the only way for us to do that, there are A through H, A through I sections. I think once we got through A, B, and C, it would really flow very quickly after that, because we'd hammer out a lot of these fundamental kind of issues, and we'd be able to go much more quickly. But I don't think we're ready to add or subtract or do anything else until we've all had the chance to have this conversation, because I think we need to have it.
I'm fine moving it forward and changing it after the fact. I mean, it's a question of 6 of one, half dozen of the other. Gary's done the work. He's put the effort and thought into it. We can work from that draft. I don't see what difference it makes.
As long as it's still labeled a draft, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I think we should send them the intent. It's a draft. We're not asking to incorporate the language, every single word and every single, description.
Well, then
But I
let's
think
just
it's the
go through
intent.
the changes that we're going to send them, because I don't know that I agree with the intent.
I mean, from what I understand, Mary, it continues to be a draft. We can change it. So if MAPC is willing to say it continues to be a draft, then what difference does it make?
Could we somehow, obviously send Gary's suggestion to the MAPC and ask them to incorporate those suggestions into what they have now, and then maybe let us know that they are planning board, it is planning board input designated, so that when we get the draft back and we continue to break it up into the sections, we'll know that although they incorporated his thoughts stylistically, we'll know that they are of the planning board's thoughts opposed to MAPC, and we can kind of work from there.
So you mean still color-coded like this, sort of?
Well, somehow we'll know that there was our input.
Yeah.
And obviously, as you said, Sarah, it's still going to be a draft. We're still going to go through it. But, I think we should credit what Gary did, and we shouldn't have that have them incorporated stylistically into what they currently have.
All right, I will touch base with them.
See if they can do it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
See if they can.
do it.
I mean, it's really,
Because even Gary conceded that you're more concerned about the intent.
it's the intent and the
Style.
content, it's not the style. I was just trying to put things in after I read it a number of times. I made a list of things. Oh, I think this isn't really articulated. And I heard it, I compared it against notes that I had in the hearings. I said, well, people talked about it at my table, about this, that, and the other thing. And I just didn't see it, so I wanted to incorporate it. It doesn't have to be written like this. You could simplify it. But it's really the intent and the content. It's not the stylistic.
And I like the suggestion that put forth earlier about breaking it down into maybe 8 meetings where we take one section at a time and dedicate a half an hour to 45 minutes on that one section, so we can really focus on that before we finalize anything. That sound good to everybody?
Sure.
That's fine.
Okay, all right. And if MFPC says they can't do it that way, then we'll...
I'll let you know what they say either way. Okay?
All right, next item on the agenda is a preliminary subdivision review for 24 Lewis Court. So we have Mr. Wooden back. Good to see you again. How are you? Great. Why not? Who's going to speak? You going to speak for yourself, Mr. Cox? Mr. Cox, are you done? Okay, great.
Excuse me.
So now, because it's a preliminary discussion, when you go over your, given that discussion, when you go over your content, make sure you discuss any waivers you're going to need. I think you're going to need about 4 or 5, so I'll just highlight those and we can go. And we are being broadcast on television tonight, so is that a good angle for you, sir, or do you want to just stand over there? Move the mic over, we can capture it.
Yeah, you do need to be talking to the microphone, yes. So the people at home can hear you.
Good evening. Thanks for the time. My name's John Wooden. I live at 156 Union Street. I am the applicant. I'm here tonight with my engineer, Gary James, and a consultant, Tom Cox. Just wanted to give an overview of what I'm proposing before we get into specific questions. I have the following property, 24 Lewis Court, under purchase and sale agreement. And the subject property is located right here. Just to kind of give an idea of exactly where it is before I begin discussing it. To the west, I believe, is the South Shore Country Club, and just to the north is the old Public Works Department, and to the south would be the St. Paul's Cemetery. So this is kind of the subject property. It's the furthest piece of property on Lewis Court, 24 Lewis Court. It's about 3.5 acres, 3.4, with a single-family property on it right now. And then what we're proposing would be the following. 3 single-family residents to extend Lewis Court from about here to here, and this is the existing property. And the proposal would be to build the additional 3 single-family residents as noted. The utilities right now that are there, you have overhead electric that come down. Town sewer does exist in Lewis Court. And there is water main and a hydrant about right here, halfway down. Right about here. Excuse me. The general condition of Lewis Court is average due to the recent improvements of the water line that was just put in. Anyway, that is about it as far as the overview is concerned. We can get into specific requested waivers and things like that as I take questions.
First question I've got, are you going to be able to widen the road at all?
Gary, you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. And the reason why I asked, we got a letter today from the fire department, from Captain Damstra, indicating the fire department's objection to the extension unless the road is widened. We got that today, so we'll get you a copy of that.
I just gave
okay.
Maybe I can expand on some of what John just presented. The existing right-of-way is a public way, Lewis Court itself. I believe it's about a 2-rod road, but it does vary in width. It's about 33 to 35 feet wide is the current right-of-way. The right-of-way is approximately about 420 feet long right now. It ends right here. This is the end of the existing public way. It's actually an existing private way that provides access to these 200 houses right now.
Yeah.
So you can see that our proposal is to make improvements to the private way. But in conjunction with that, we are also proposing to make improvements to the existing public way. I believe that, as I stated, is 400 and some odd feet. So it would be widened. We would maintain, we would provide a pavement width that would actually meet the subdivision rules and regulations. So it would be 22 feet of travelway with Cape Cod berms on both sides.
The existing is 418 feet in length, and as proposed would be 793.
6-inch length, all right. And
The total length.
total length. And Gary, you said you're going to be able to widen it enough to meet our regs?
Yes. Now, the one thing we can't do is we just can't provide you the sidewalk. There's just not enough room in the existing right-of-way to be able to provide the sidewalk. So we're going to have to live with the existing right-of-way as it stands right now.
So if it was widened to meet our existing regs, I think the fire department's objection would be lifted.
Well, right now, it's pretty much a one-way road. You can't go back and forth on the existing public way right now.
So when you say up to the minor roadway specifications, are you including the original road right now, the Lewis Court, as well as the,
Yes.
Extension of it?
Yes.
So in terms of the bylaw, the right-of-way requirement is 40 feet. Rules and subdivision,
46.
rules and regs.
46.
Is 46 feet
46.
minimum
Yeah.
right-of-way
Minimum
width.
right-of-way, yeah.
And within that, the required roadway paved width is 22 feet,
22 plus the berm on both sides.
plus the berm, and then what would it be, the width be for, so the 22-foot paved road for the fire department? What would be the sidewalk width requirements on either side?
I think it's a 4-foot sidewalk on one side.
So 4 feet, so you'd have, what's the width of the current right-of-way on the existing Lewis Court, the public Lewis Court?
It ranges from 33 to 35 feet, the existing public way. It's about the width of it right
So the narrowest point is 33 feet at Hersey Street?
Yes, I believe it is. And it widens out pretty much. It actually gets a little bit wider, diverges a little bit towards the end till you meet the public way, till you meet the private way, I'm sorry, the end of the public way.
But at the neck down where the public right-of-way meets the private right-of-way, it's 23 feet wide?
Well, they don't line up.
They don't line up?
They don't line up. Yeah.
So the net clear width is 23 feet?
I believe it's 26.
Is it 26?
I believe it's 26. It's enough to get the roadway in.
I have concern about the length of the roadway, 793 feet for a roadway that's a cul-de-sac is pretty long.
What is the rules and regs, isn't it 400, 450? 800, so it's within the rules and regs?
Yeah.
What other waivers? You need 5, right?
Yeah, we're trying, as John stated, we're trying to work with within the existing code. And we do have an existing, even with the existing private way. One of the waivers is specifically to allow us the ability to use retaining walls on either side. That applies specifically to the existing public way. There will be a retaining wall proposed here. There's an existing retaining wall here that would be upgraded. I'm sorry. And then there would be another retaining wall, I believe, right in here. And then the second one here along the edge of that extension, specifically, and that one's required specifically to protect the wetlands on that.
So the provision of, I'm trying to understand the sidewalk constraints. Right now, there'd be 4 additional houses, 4 additional lots from what's there now?
3
additional houses.
3 additional houses.
So there'd be an 850-foot roadway length that wouldn't have any sidewalks. And I'm wondering, is it a function of the width of the right-of-way, or is it a function of the retaining walls that are there to meet grades and separate the roadway from adjacent areas?
Entirely because of the infringements on the existing public way by the existing homeowners on either side. As it is right now, to maintain your way, the pavement width, a couple of these houses will lose their parking spaces. They're using the right-of-way right now to park.
Have you spoken to the DPW about this?
Yes. Yes,
And
we
what
have.
do they say about this jog in the road and no sidewalks and the right-of-way change and?
Tom Cox, Harry. So we've got a preliminary Department of Public Works with with Harry. We haven't presented the waivers and et cetera. what exactly he wanted to see. He deferred to the planning board, actually, on that. But just kind of quickly, back to the minor roadway issue that we're talking about, we've designed the roadway to be as consistent as possible with the minor planning board rules and regulations, with the 22 feet wide and et cetera. And because of that, it causes, some retaining walls kind of up in this area. One thing that I will know, kind of the first thing we did when we got the property, when John got the property under control, is we went out and met with the neighborhood, actually. We had a preliminary plan that had a little less detail on it than we have today, and we door knocked. And we had a discussion with all the property owners, I think with the exception of one who was on vacation.
We went out 3 different times.
Yeah.
We started in late October and went out 3 different times and met with everybody but one person.
So to that point of door knocking and just getting a feel kind of for the neighborhood, and this hearing came up a little bit quickly on us, but we'll make a commitment here is at the next hearing, when we know that date is, to at least go door knocking again to let the neighborhood know that we're here having this discussion with the planning board. So you can hear from them and not kind of, secondhand from us. One thing that we heard from everybody on the neighborhood was that to the extent that it's improved, they want to limit the impact as possible. The impact visually, the impact, the loss of, front yard space, et cetera, et cetera. And I think we heard from one person that, they didn't actually want a sidewalk, or they didn't think a sidewalk would actually be kind of used. So as we design this, there's constraints kind of in the right of way, and there's constraints with the wetlands and others. On top of kind of trying to design the most least impactful roadway, and everybody probably says that. That's why the actually roadway kind of meanders through the right-of-way, taking into consideration the existing conditions and the geometry of kind of how our extension aligns with that.
What I heard the most was, are you going to improve the road? And are you building condominiums? That was the 2 biggest questions.
Are you building what?
Was I proposing condominiums? And the answer to that was no.
You mean multifamily?
Right. Which we're not. And are we going to improve the existing roadway, not just the extension part that we proposed? And the answer is yes. And it's kind of a give and take as to the amount we do as opposed to how much we intend to request there.
And one of the things that comes to mind when I look at the grades on the plan is that I can see where the retainage is on the south side to accommodate those grades coming down to the roadway. I'm concerned, though, about not having sidewalks, not having one sidewalk at least, because with retaining walls, and I'm thinking of the winter, which we're very familiar with, having a bad one right now. If someone's walking on this roadway, there is no sidewalk, and the barrier is a retaining wall. So if there's a problem with a vehicle, and there's a pedestrian in this roadway, there's no place to go. And so to me, that's, I'm thinking of waivers in the context of, the good of the town. That's why we'd have to justify them. I have an issue with not providing sidewalks. I think it's a safety issue, and I don't know how. Right now, the right-of-way is less than what is allowed. How would you do this and provide a single sidewalk on the side that would be? I'm assuming from the grades it's the south side that's the most constrained, but I could be wrong.
No, you're right. South side is the most constrained.
Right. How would you do, and also there's a curve also at the neck down, and then there's also a driveway entrance there, so there's activity at the neck down, which is where it really squeezes, and I'm just thinking, how would a sidewalk be provided here? What would you have to do to the plan to provide a sidewalk?
You might have to jump across between the public and the private way. You might have to jump across the street.
So you'd come down the street on the south side and then you'd transition to the north side, or would you come down on the north side and transition to the south side of the new?
North side and transition to the south side.
And how would you do that? How would you do that transition?
You probably have to push the center line of the roadway off center. try and utilize one side to the max.
There's one piece of property here that's part of their land is in the, I can see why, because the relationship of the house to the street. It's the house that's abuts the neck down on the south side. Is there any possibility for some of that to be a little wider there at the neck down? And to go, you know, that property owner, I don't know if you talked about that. It's this one here, is this L-shaped house at the neck down? See where this, that sticks into the neck down? Is there any way to ease that? It's the L-shaped house.
No.
It's Stephanian's house?
No, I don't think so.
Or on the other side, is there a way to extend the width of the roadway on the north side? What's there, what's in there now? That's a dwelling with a lot. Is there a possibility of extending this right away to meet that, to make them wider?
We could look at, if you look at the public, the existing private way, I mean, there's a big jog on that. The problem is
This is too close to the front of the
Can I
house.
say something before we go on too much longer with this? Gary, I know you've been involved with us in conversations about roadways quite a few times over the last few years. We have been so concerned with roadways meeting every single specification in the rules and regs before we grant any waivers for anything. And although the roadway dimensions for the new part of this road meet our rules and regs, the existing Lewis Court doesn't in so many different ways. It's just,
no, I understand.
in so many different ways, it doesn't. I think before we go into details about where the sidewalk would go and all these little things, we really have to decide whether this very extensive increase in the use off of Lewis Court is appropriate, given that Lewis Court doesn't conform with our rules and regs. And I don't know how many of these conversations you've been on, but I know of at least 8 that we've had in the last 3 years where we haven't given anybody a break on any of those dimensional requirements. We may then say, okay, you meet the dimensions, we'll go with this layout because it's better. But I have kind of a feeling like we're going into a territory where we have not been comfortable going before, and I'm not sure why we would.
Well, I guess the real issue here is that it's an existing public way.
Right. So it's existing, but now we're going to add
It's currently providing access to 8 houses.
Right.
We will increase it from 8 to 11.
Right.
We will now have a roadway that provides two-way access, that provides safe and adequate two-way access, whereas right now, you can only go one way. And the costs associated with the improvements to the existing public way are being borne by the developer. And it's an expensive cost.
Well, I think that, I mean, I can't speak for everybody here. I think that we would need to have a conversation with the DPW about this, because I think that to me, that's the decision is the existing Lewis Court. I think the rest of it, that's great, we can have that, but I think it's a waste of everybody's time until we answer that fundamental question, whether we can do that.
And I guess if you look at it from our standpoint, the thing is there's a lot of money that will be spent in terms of the improvements to the existing public way, which is money that will not be spent by the town of Hingham.
To your knowledge.
Well, it's going to have to, you will have to spend it.
Right. Right. Well,
it's unfortunate that the residents aren't here, because you'd be here on some street.
Right.
Pretty much everybody that I approached was, you want to fix the roadway, look at the road, and one person brought me out and pointed at the current condition and things that I'm proposing to improve.
And I heard about this coming, and actually, when I was out jogging, I actually jogged down there and check it out, and it's currently in pretty bad shape. It's very bad shape.
It's not just the road itself, they just did the water line. no town code was reminded after that, so kind of,
Just out of curiosity, it seemed to me like there was a lot of wetland back there. And when I had to kind of jog to the end of it, kind of looked around a little bit. We're going to have some wetland issues with some of these.
It's going to be a little bit contested.
I didn't go walking back there, I didn't want to
Yeah.
get wet, but I just kind of noticed that.
I guess the thing to remember is, the way I'm looking at it is that there's an existing paved way right now. There are no drainage improvements. There are very few drainage improvements. The only source of water for that stream right now coming is from the low point at the intersection in Percy Street, right out in front of the old DPW line. That's all the water that comes into this. And so it's pretty much just nothing more than a drainage channel that accepts untreated water from the city or from the town of Hingham. The improvements that we are proposing will bring pretty much all of the proposed way in conformity with the stormwater management standards. So there's a real benefit, and I believe I can
I'd like to hear
convince
from
conservation.
John. I'd be interested in hearing from John.
Yeah, John, do you want
I haven't had time to complete the review, but I did go out to the site, I did look at the plan, and I guess my recommendation would be certainly DPW, because, so this is the end of the existing road, and this is the new road, so there's the walls here, which are like a foot off the berm, so there's like no snow, I mean, it's really tight. This side, there's an old stone foundation, maybe 5 feet from a wall and cut. I don't even know if you can do it. There's wetlands here, they definitely should get comments from the wetland, from Concom, because they had filled wetlands to put this wall in. And the road isn't actually even in alignment here, like it shifts, so you don't have, it's not, like the layout doesn't even match up, it's like shifted because of the wetlands, and then the road's not within the layout, so like on this corner, there's almost no, if you plow the road, you're gonna put the snow in somebody's land other than the town, right away, and the same on this corner here, because I guess this is a separate parcel, so there's no room there. So that's, the DPW certainly would want to, they're going to ask to have this road accepted as it is. I don't know. So I think highway and wetlands are, a couple of people should get some comments from. I think there may be more waivers than listed, if we get into it as well.
So your sense in re-reviewing this is that it hasn't really changed from the last time we looked at it in terms of all the constraints. The right-of-way constraints haven't changed, and the width within that right-of-way, the feasibility of being able to build the 22-foot paved section of the right-of-way isn't certain, based on the constraints of the topography and the wetlands and everything else. So that's kind of where it stands. This is a proposal, but the feasibility of this would need to be vetted too, in addition to the nonconformance relative to the bylaw requirements.
It's got to be tight for sure. Yeah, this wall is like, they're really tight. They're right up against. This one I think is fill, and this one's been cut. A fill wall isn't as hard, but a cut wall is tough. This is a fill wall here. It's partially in the wetlands.
So when they talk about improvements, they're not talking about improvements in that, with that roadway can sort of
Yeah,
confine
the
it.
roadway right now is a mess, no doubt about it. It's all.
But they can't widen it there, they can't make that more.
Well, they're widening it pretty much here all the way, but the trouble is that the wetlands are right in here, so when the road
Does the
you can't
job.
just extend it through the wetlands, or maybe you can if you get permission to, but I think that's there's the constraint here of the walls, and then there's the constraint here of the wetlands. There's like a pipe or a culvert coming through here, this is wet, and I don't know, it says approximate, so they haven't been, it's pretty steep though, this is a steep slope.
Yeah, certainly the grades we have here are pretty steep.
Well, the side slope is steep.
Yeah.
Coming into the driveway. So
What about the applicant saying he's going to be able to improve the drainage?
the drainage?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no drainage now, other than
That would help.
there's a pipe under this driveway. What they would do is they're proposing, there's a high point here, so there's no drainage here. The first drainage basically starts just at the end of the right-of-way. And then there's another set of catch basins here. I think this actually wouldn't work because I think it's too close to the buffer. I mean, you're supposed to have a 50-foot no touch to the wetlands, and I think it's within the, wetlands are proximate, but it's, so that would probably have to move. But they would add catch basins that you don't have currently. The whole road right now, I think, just sort of, I don't even know if it actually pitches much. I mean, I think it's probably puddles right now in places, and then up here, I think it sheds this way. Because it ends right here, there's sort of a
Did you have to raise the elevations of the roadway to get the crown to work and get the drainage to work?
Well, it's, I mean, well, that's the other thing, to get, because it's so narrow and tight, you know, you pitch and, right now, these lots slope into it, but they're gonna have a bit of a ridge. They're gonna make like a swale along certain sections in the front yards on this side. This side, I think it would sort of pitch over, because there's a low spot here with a pipe, so anything here could go there. But they're crowning the road and putting a berm, and they'd collect the water, so, I mean, there isn't, certainly there's an improvement to the road. I just don't know if you can get to the definitive stage, you get really good detail. I don't know how easy it's gonna be to build that, those walls. And you gotta be filling wetlands, and you need to get that, and you don't have a consensus plan. So you're gonna have a really screwy.
So there are feasibility issues here.
I think so. I would definitely get highway department to see what they have to say, and there is a benefit to having a new road plan versus what's there today.
Right.
The question is that outweighing whatever else. And the neighbors probably should comment as well, because some of the driveways are literally, there would be no driveway when you widen it, because they're partially parked into the road.
Would you say?
You should probably go see it if you haven't. I wasn't involved in the prior program, so I don't know.
Mr. Cox, you said the neighbors are pretty receptive.
So I'm going to let them speak for themselves, if you will, but, you know, some of that, as John was saying, when we were out there, the concern was the existing width of the pavement, the poor condition of the roadway, et cetera. But I hear loud and clear kind of the board's concerns with, you know, the constraints that exist. They're constraints inside of a public way, so we can only make improvements within what the town has control over. Same scenario to the extent that the board was, or excuse me, the town was going to make those improvements. What we have today is a roadway that varies, I think, from 16 to 18 feet. When people get oil delivered on that roadway, the roadway is shut down. What we're proposing is to improve the roadway, you know, to 22 feet, would be consistent with the planning board rules and regulations. And, you know, we can take have a discussion about how there's 5 that we're asking for right now, and how perhaps it may not comply in other ways. I thought we did a pretty good job of fine-tooth comb process. But again, you know, the waivers we're asking for, because the constraints exist inside that existing public way. You know, what we had before was a 40-foot wide right-of-way. One thing we didn't know, we did acquire some land from one of the abutters on the, I think it's on the southerly side of the property, to make sure that we had a 46-foot right-of-way as we extend. Yes, the roadway kind of meanders inside the right-of-way, but I think if you take a step back and you look at the actual road, the roadway conforms with the planning board rules and regulations from width, from alignment, from grades, from radii, et cetera, knowing full well that you know, that there weren't going to be any waivers to that. That causes the retaining walls. That causes other things. We get that. You know, I think maybe the takeaway is, let us have a discussion with the Conservation Commission. Let us have a discussion with the Department of Public Works, and perhaps we come back in a couple of weeks for our further discussion.
And I could also reapproach many neighbors, telling them that we've got a meeting and another meeting is coming up, and here's the actual proposed plan, things like that, it would be an opportunity. Again, this came up pretty quickly on us, to get as prepared as possible.
No, I was just waiting for somebody, sorry.
Oh. All right, so I think that sounds good. You're going to go meet with DPW, Concom, and come back to us. So 45 days, we have 45 days to get you back in.
So the planning board will have to act at your next meeting of March 24th. This project goes until April 4th, but you don't have another meeting until April 7th. So
You're going to be able to get those meetings in before March 24th?
Concom?
So this would be back on your agenda for April 24th for action.
March 24th.
Might be difficult
March
to get
24th.
Concom involved before then, but
I did check with the conservation agent, and she told me that a order of conditions would be likely required for this, like a formal. There is a existing order, but they'd have to basically redelineate the wetlands and go through the process again, is what she indicated me today after just a very quick look.
We did have a preliminary meeting with Concom as well as Board of Health, introducing what we're going to be bringing to here tonight. It seemed that we need to follow up with specifics.
I think you've heard today that we have concerns about many of the existing things, whether the DPW and Concom says what they say, we still have outstanding concerns. So even if they say, hey, it looks fine, wetlands look fine, we still might say we have concerns that, we don't feel that this is a sensible approach to extending a roadway and creating a longer roadway that has constraints within it and doesn't follow all of our rules and regulations, including the sidewalk. So.
All right, we'll see. Thank you, sir. We'll see you back on the 24th.
Thank
All right.
you very much.
Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
All right, so the next item on the agenda is 11 Crooked Main Meadow. We have received a written request for an extension. It was emailed in, but Mary informed me that our past practice is to accept it as a written request. So I would make a motion that we grant the extension request made by Mr. John Marchand for 11 Crooked Meadow Lane.
So moved.
All those in favor?
And would that be to the 24th as well?
Are you here for that?
Yes, I'm a property owner. I have never met.
Could you come to the microphone,
yes.
please?
I am Penny Collins, the owner of 11 Crooked Meadow Lane. I have never met Mr. John Marchand. He, in the end, refused to sign the P&S. I believe he signed the application form B as an owner, but under P&S. But there is no purchase and sales agreement existing right now.
Okay, well, we're just going to act on the extension tonight. We're not going to really deliberate on the matter, but
I think
please feel free to come back on the 24th.
Well, I think the board, I'm requesting the board to close this application because Mr. Marchand doesn't have my authority to apply. He doesn't
own the property.
He doesn't own the property. He signed as an owner, which is not true.
That doesn't seem right.
If you look at the Form B, I believe you have, I forgot to bring.
We have the form. We have the form.
I believe there's an issue with the purchase and sale of the property, and I don't want to get into the legality of it. So I don't think I'm inclined to close it tonight, but we're just going to continue it. We'll certainly address that ownership issue on the 24th if need be.
Well, ownership is clear. He's not the owner. I am. And he signed as an owner. Under P&S,
Well,
there is no P&S though.
I don't disagree with you, man, but we don't really have we're not going to go into the legal aspects of it now. I mean, I'm not saying you're wrong or right. I'm just saying we have an application for John Marchand for Crooked Meadow Lane. I understand I've been informed that there's an issue with the purchase and sale agreement, and right now, the issue before us right now is just to continue the matter to a later date, and I'm inclined to do that. And we have a second for the motion. All those in favor? Aye. Against? Okay.
Do we have a second? Did we get a second?
Gary?
Okay.
So we're just not,
Yeah, I mean, we're not getting...
we're pushing it off.
Okay.
Yeah, we're not, here as lawyers, we're here as a board
On March 24th, I have to be here again because he doesn't have any right to go ahead with this application.
What I'll do is for you, before the 24th, I'll ask our legal counsel to look into that matter so that if he does come in on the 24th to proceed on the application, the board will have some better understanding of what the issue is. How's that?
Well, I just want to be notified because today I found out on my own that the hearing is taking place without me. I've been kept in the dark. For the last 2 months, he refused to sign purchase and sale. And if I didn't show up today, the hearing go on without my knowledge, without my consent. And that is not
Would you want to leave your number, Mary? Can you call her? We'll
Sure, of
call you,
course.
and if, our council believes you should be here, then we'll tell you that. If she believes that it's fine for you not to be here and it's clear, then we can do that for you, so you don't have to come again. We really love coming, but...
Thank you.
All right, good luck with everything. All right, the next item on the agenda is continuation of hearing 249 Cushion Street. We have Mrs. Howard. She was here.
Is she in the hallway?
Let's see if we can bring her back in.
She didn't realize we'd be operating at lightning speed because she's not on till 9:15. Thank you.
All right, good luck.
Yeah, good luck. Did we need on this one?
No, I understand. I just had a... Okay. So we did this one. Okay.
Good to see you again, Lyle. How are you? Good? So we're going to see you early. Good, we got you early tonight. So we had an extension request for the prior application. So why don't you give us an update on where you're at with everything?
Gary asked me to develop it to show you the other option, which you have. And in fact, this is the other option, right here. You'll see it's a little bit more conventional.
And Gary, can you tell me, Gary Tondorf, can you tell me why you wanted the second option, just because I'm afraid I wasn't here?
Yeah, the original option, the original plan, had a very unique
Yeah, I remember that.
subdivision proposal, which I thought was
The circle within the circle.
the circle within the circle and the serpentine, if that's the right word,
Yeah,
kind of layout of the attachment of the back lot to the front lot to get the prescriptive criteria met in terms of getting the radius of the circle to work and what have you. However, I didn't think it was consistent with the layout, the character of, the current kind of settlement pattern on Cushing Street. And I thought it was, it just seemed to me to be a little too unique. So I asked for the conventional subdivision layout because that, it seemed to me, would create two lots that would be more consistent with, maintaining the character of the streetscape on Cushing Street and not having this somewhat convoluted layout in terms of the serpentine connection between the two lots. Also, what it does is it essentially, the layout fosters another house along the streetscape of Cushing Street rather than having an outbuilding on Cushing Street.
Yes.
And then it has, the back lot's basically the same in either scheme, in terms of the house placement.
It's exactly the same, it's the exact same house.
But this seemed to me to be more consistent. When I saw it, when I saw it in the package, I looked at it and I compared the two, and I said, yes, this is much more consistent with kind of the typical layout. Now, I think the reasons that I heard that the original one was presented is that you could save money on some of the pavement. At least that was the strong reason that I heard, or the one that might recommend it. On the other hand, it seemed to me that you're not paving all of the right-of-way and you don't have to pave the cul-de-sac. You can do a hammerhead or some kind of a turning arrangement which minimizes the amount of pavement within that right-of-way. And I looked at the two and I didn't really see that the pavement was much different between the two.
It's about another 100 feet. The big difference is when you look at the drainage. There are pros and cons on both of them. With this length, the one pro about it is that the grading requirements are almost de minimis.
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost like maybe 20 yards.
Right, no, and this is this current option,
The new option.
the simpler option. I would agree.
It's unbelievable how close it is to existing grade. There's almost no excavation, no fill, nothing required. Now, it does require that you go more conventional in terms of the drainage, so you are going to have more structure. It's going to require some more maintenance.
But you're not going to have that large rain garden and the swale,
No.
which was a major civil grading piece.
Yeah, and the garden remains as a current, it remains the garden.
So the kind of the landscape, the flow of the landscape and the character of the open space on the lot is more consistent with what it is now.
Yes, it is.
So when you look in from the streetscape, it's going to look like the interventions are relatively minor.
Yes.
And you're going to have, a house facing Cushing Street like all the rest of the houses,
Yes.
rather than an outbuilding. It seemed to me odd to go down Cushing, it's a sort of a cadence, the houses, the outbuilding's always in the back.
And only because I didn't want, all of a sudden you to see a building there and get Gary tricked you.
No, I understand. No, I
So I
understand.
said, well,
I
you could put
understand.
an outbuilding there, so it did have that capability.
Plus, it seemed-
Especially when you look at the fact that the septic is right there.
It also seemed to give each house a nicer layout in terms of the adjacent yard and open space and...
It's, the only difference is that when you look at the placement of the first house is a little bit closer to Cushing Street.
It is. It is, but that's the kind of the cadence of Cushing Street.
It is right now, when you look at it.
And also, this one's nicer in terms of the alignment of the subdivision paved area with Beck Lane. Seems to deal with this curve in Cushing Street. This other one, the other one was more north, so there was an issue of making the transition onto Cushing.
They're almost the
Are
exact
they?
same at the intersection.
I thought this one, the other one was further north. I could be wrong.
No, they were the same. But this
Okay.
one, as I said, this one does have the extra advantages of, the other benefit is they only have to do one septic system, so
Right.
they can still continue to use that.
Right.
And they really do have the option, if they wanted to move the existing house, it's a minor move,
Yeah.
to be able to bring it into conformance, so.
So it seems to me, in terms of the owner's yield, in terms of their plan, this one, they achieve more with less intervention on the site.
Yes, there's a little bit more maintenance required associated with it in terms of
With the catch basins and
with
stuff.
the catch
Yeah,
basins,
yeah.
Although admittedly, how much sand are they actually going to
Right.
put down? It's-
Given-
If the DPW is not involved with it, you're not going to see the sand loads that we would normally on the public way.
Mhm. Yeah.
It'd just be a private guy.
Yeah. No, I was thinking, all things considered, the yield versus the intervention was much better on this, plus you maintain the original topography and the original character of the land, which is, to me, there's such a beautiful lot that it would be nice to, and the natural character of the abutting properties is maintained with the Hingham, with the town-owned land, that this would be just a natural flow. It seems to me, seems much nicer.
Yeah, it is. As I said, the only real benefit associated with the original one was just a shorter.
Shorter number pavement, which is really a financial
Yeah.
issue rather than a, but with all the rain garden and stuff, wouldn't that offset it, the cost of that rain garden?
A little bit.
Yeah, okay.
And on option 2, the waivers would involve the use of the subsurface drainage systems.
That's right.
And then you just want to put concrete bounds in opposed to granite monuments.
That's correct. Yeah. Those would be the only.
Are the bounds along Cushing granite? Typically along the right-of-way, they granite, and then you could do those concrete?
Yeah, we could. Very easily. The only thing is you just have to hire somebody, you'd have to scratch in HHB, but if there was only a bound without the HHB, all we had to do was put a dimple on it, and the answer is it's not a lot of money.
Right. So I think we typically do have our public way bounds in granite.
Before there was an issue with an easement, are we still, I remember there was some kind of easement on the roadway, no?
The easement doesn't become an issue at all.
So the roadway, yeah, explain it to me, sorry.
The easement is there, it's there.
Where is the easement?
The easement's on the bottom line.
So the dotted line to the north of the lot, the blue lot line, is the easement?
Is the easement, yeah.
And that provides access to the town-owned land? Is that basically what that's about?
Yes. Although the town doesn't really have it.
Now, the Pullens property, how does that, where would that driveway go? Is that on the easement?
No, they actually own that land.
The Pullens own this easement land here?
Yes, they own the land that's the easement covers.
Oh, so-
They have that little 20-foot strip going.
Oh, that's how they get out, their driveways, that
Yes,
easement?
that's their driveway.
Separate from this roadway?
That's correct.
So you get parallel driveways?
They have split frontage. They have 100 feet of frontage.
I see it.
On the other side.
Interesting, creative.
Yeah. I think Mr. Murphy did that one.
Oh, did he?
Yes, he did. He was the builder on that one. You don't know Mr. Murphy. I think it was back in 1982 when I met Mr. Murphy.
Interesting. Okay.
So have you considered eliminating the second, the existing driveway onto Cushing Street?
If you went with the second option, the answer is, yeah, you probably could eliminate it.
Because I think it would make a better,
Yeah, I would agree.
it would maximize the use of the existing roadway and reduce the number of curb cuts.
And you are demolishing that house?
It's going to have to, he's going to have to be demolished and moved onto the other,
For the septic?
no, because the front yard setback.
Oh,
Despite the fact that it's non-conforming to Cushing Street, they will not recognize the non-conformance of the proposed way, so therefore you must be from that setback, which is 50 feet.
for this way.
Yes.
And what is it,
So then
30
right
feet?
now it's 38.
That's right. So it's 12 feet over the line, so it's, even though the non-conformance is less non-conforming than the
Yeah.
existing non-conformance, the answer is that they won't grant you the variance.
And that's going to be with both options, you'd have to...
Yes, you'd still,
Yeah.
yes, with both options, it would still.
But,
Cute house.
so it might be an opportunity to get the garage to come off of the new road rather than
Yes.
off of
Yes.
here. And will the front of the house still face Cushing?
My gut reaction is no. It'd probably be a side yard.
Can the existing house be moved? It's a neat house.
Yeah.
It is a cute
Yeah,
house.
preference, yeah.
It's a neat house. It's part of the old character.
Yeah. I haven't been in the basement, so.
Character of Cushing Street.
Yeah.
You know, a new house wouldn't be the same.
We know.
They do have a lot of options in terms of even moving the existing house now.
Yeah, I mean, it's flat, so it wouldn't be hard to move it.
Oh, no, they got it.
Gordon, is it the Gordon brothers that do the moving? They moved to the shed, they're great.
Yeah.
We actually spoke with Hayden building members, because I know about Hayden's.
Yeah. Okay.
Any other question from the board?
Does John have any?
Oh, that's right, yeah. Sorry,
I think there's a couple other waivers that they would need based on the way the plan's drawn, unless that's not the intent to agree with that. One is on the, I know why it's there, but it's a reserved strip between the other lots, so you don't have no setback thing. I think you need a waiver for that. The roadway scales 14 feet, and it has to be 18. I don't know if you want to go 18 or you want to go 14.
No, it's a minor residential, it's
18 feet.
Is it? Okay, it is, but I thought I changed the detail.
It scales on the plan for it.
Oh, okay. Okay, no, I can get it.
And I don't know whether you wanted a waiver, I'm asking the question, and I don't know whether the board wants to. I'm just saying, that as drawn, you would need waivers, the intention to have the waiver or not, and then you also need a waiver for the cul-de-sac.
Okay.
Why do they need a
No,
waiver for the,
No,
It's the hammerhead.
The intention to provide the 18, yeah, okay.
and why the waiver for the cul-de-sac?
You need, because the cul-de-sac, by the bylaw, needs to be the circle.
Just for the hammerhead.
So you need a waiver for not constructing the circle.
So constructing a hammerhead in lieu of the circle.
Correct.
Yeah.
The
So
circle
it's-
is, I see the circle, but there, I
No,
guess,
the pavement radius.
So the
pavement-
setback's going to be, the waiver's going to be of
Okay.
the cul-de-sac. We're going to waive the cul-de-sac in favor
If
of
that's what you
the...
choose,
Right.
yeah. I mean, they've got two listed, and I'm just saying, I think
Yeah,
that there's
yeah.
more that you
Yeah,
would need.
okay.
They requested the subsurface drainage system under 5D, I think it's actually 4E. Not, I mean, it would make more difference in the definitive, but I'm throwing these out there
Yeah.
because the board should say yes or no to
Right,
these
no, I
ideas.
agree.
So when you do a definitive, you're not coming in with, right,
No,
wrong
good point.
road into something that's going to change. The road doesn't meet the typical cross-section because it doesn't have the shoulder, there's grading within the shoulders, which there's no way you could probably do it with that northern property without, even though it's relatively flat to get the contours to fit. I mean, that's like right up against it. So the way that the cross-section shows is you have the road and then you have however much shoulder, full width to the right-of-way limit.
Yeah.
what's the existing foundation in the cul-de-sac? What is that?
It's an old.
It's an old barn.
barn.
Just an old barn. There's actually two.
So, John, in terms of the grading at the roadway, I'm looking over here at the cross-section too. Are you saying that if the 6-to-1 slope is changed, you can do that? Is there a waiver on the slope, or is it a plan problem?
I think that you need a waiver because this is supposed to be a specific width
Right.
and grade, and you can't get it right here.
Because you don't have enough width?
You don't have a radius,
Yeah.
so that wouldn't,
Well, the lot line is square to the radius
so that
of the
wouldn't
entrance.
wouldn't comply there.
I see.
And in addition, the grading, it's graded in here. Now, on this side, you could probably
do that,
do it,
yeah.
but on this side, I don't know that you could, because if you look at these, typically, they're like, this is going this way, so this would be flat this way,
That's right.
pitching to the road. This is pitching now the other way.
So you've got pitching onto the easement or the right-of-way that you can't have. You're pitching on your neighbor's yards. Yeah.
Right. In this location, you're doing that. I don't know up here on this little one side. I think this one's coming in.
Is there a way that this can be regraded such that it meets the contact grades of the abutting property to the north?
Probably not, and maintain your 1% and your slopes and vertical curves and all that stuff, so.
If the roadway was a slightly lower grade, if the grade of the roadway was slightly lower, given the grades here are lower to the north, if I'm reading this correctly, if I got that right? The grade's lower to the north?
It's hard to tell. It's very, very flat out there. This one here, the road's a little higher.
A little higher.
And then in this location, there's not, there's only like one or two, there's only a couple of contours across the whole road. But in this case, it comes up and then it goes like this. That looks more like a cut.
Right.
And this looks like a fill. But maybe, actually a little profile. See how close it is to the grade? There's very little grading, but.
If we were to say as a stipulation that the grading of the roadway would be rethought and adjusted relative to maintaining that criteria, is that something that we could put
I don't
in?
know that you could do.
You can't, you don't know if it's feasible.
If you look at the cross-section requirement for a minor residential, the shoulder only has to be 4 feet wide. Because of the width of the right-of-way, 40 feet, it gives you that opportunity because the grades are just so close.
Right.
I don't think there's more than 2 or 3 tenths difference in proposed and existing at any one spot. So the answer is that I only need like a 5 or 6 foot shoulder, even with a 6-to-1 slope to be able to meet existing grades. So
I don't think that's true, because on the cross-section detail, it shows the slope starting outside the right-of-way.
Right.
On the regs.
Right.
if you look at the written, it says all you need is a 4-foot shoulder from the outside edge of the pit for a limited residential.
But that's the width of the shoulder. It doesn't deal with where the grades end. So you can't drain onto somebody else's property.
There's a side slope.
Right.
It says verge of detail, that's where I'm going. I mean, I'm going to look at this thing with the tightest possible thing, so you have everything you need to deal with it. I mean, you can decide that you don't need it, and that's fine. But I'm going to start saying that you probably do, and then you can disagree with me. I don't really have a problem with that either, but I'm going to...
But you want it to meet the current requirements before you go for the waivers.
Well, that's it. I mean, in this case, I think that you could certainly pave the cul-de-sac in a circle. The only things I think that would be tough was the reserve strip thing.
Right.
And then the radius at the front.
And on a number of the subdivisions we've looked at, we've minimized the amount of pavement within the circle as long as the right-of-way requirements were met within the circle, just to minimize pavement on a small 2-lot.
The right-of-way, I think, is compliant with the circle.
That seems, yeah. So it's really where the roadway is and relative to the north lot line, the width of that shoulder and how the grades are worked out.
And even with the grades, like I said, it is very, very flat.
Right.
It's just, you probably would see a little, you're going to come over and you're going to see, it's not going to be graded to the property limit perfectly flat, because you have to have some room to work, or you're on the other guy's property.
Right.
So you would see, you might, you might see a little variation.
So on the run of the roadway, it seems less of an issue, but where it exits onto Cushing Street, where the radius is very close to the squared off
That's the trickiest thing.
location of the property line, how do you resolve that?
That's the trickiest thing. I mean, ideally, you'd have the driveway come off the new road if you could, so that you would eliminate that. Having two curb cuts that close together is not a good design,
Is there a requirement that they be farther apart?
only for roads.
Only for road intersections?
Can we require, John, that the driveway come off of the cul-de-sac?
I don't think you can require it unless that homeowner allows or agrees to it, right? Because he's got his own access. I guess, strangely, I guess, the applicant for this owns the other house, so you could have that one, but then you'd be cutting across a driveway that would be kind of, I mean, ideally, it would make perfect sense to take this thing here and just come straight like this.
Oh, but
And
then
take this
there,
right here and come straight like
but
this.
there's an area of confluence when they're crossing, because the other guy might be coming out of his driveway.
Well, I mean, yeah, if this person would agree, you would just come right here. You're still only serving 4 lots. It still meets all the criteria. It would be a much better and safer and everything else designed to do so, but I don't know that you can, I think you have all but the one. You can't, I don't think you can make that person do it.
Yeah.
And I think it throws him into nonconformity, which is why you have that.
No, you could do it only through an easement across the reserves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the only way you could do it without putting him into a nonconformity. You could have an easement, an access easement for him, as there's an access easement across his, he could have an access easement across that.
So then the town would also then have an access easement across that driveway intersection? Because right now, the town goes to Cushing Street.
Oh, right, then, yeah, I guess you'd want to have the town have rights to cross that if you wanted to eliminate that. Yeah, I don't know what the documentation of that easement says.
Been there for a while. I just, part of this was, I'll go back and look at it, but it was my understanding that when you look at the limited residential, the shoulder had to be just 4 feet long, and so, and then you create a lot, even within the limits of the right of way. So that's what we've done. Obviously, to the south, we have.
You have plenty of room. Yeah. Okay.
To the north, I really didn't want to exercise those easement rights.
Yeah, I can understand that.
Yeah, makes sense.
Okay.
Anybody else?
I have a question.
Yep, come on, are you in the butter?
Yes.
Come on up, sir, from the microphone, just identify yourself and your address.
Mike Moranis, 253 Cushing Street. I'm on the adjacent lot right here. I just know some of these issues that come up because I went through them because I rebuilt this house right here. But there's wetlands right here. And I had to get a acceptance to do this, which I'm way far away. They're pretty close to this pond area. And you gotta be 175 feet away for a septic system. And also, I'm not sure of the water, but there won't, these two houses won't be able to have wells with the regulations with the wells. You have to be 200 feet away from the outlet of the house. So there's no way these could have wells. So I'm just wondering the service that proposed for town water.
So right now, the property's on a well, the existing house? No, it's town water.
And I was wondering about the wetlands up here.
The applicant will need to go to.
Yeah, so let's go to the that will all be vetted by the Conservation Commission.
And I had a different plan, there was 2 lots proposed, so this is what's getting proposed. I have a plan of a lot here and a lot here.
That's what it still is.
So it's 2 lots?
No, there was 3 lots in this one.
I think he has the earlier
I
plan,
think
which is hard to
you-
read.
You have the earlier one.
Yeah, you have the earlier
Yeah, that's the one, yeah.
And that one's still 2, perhaps you could show him,
It's
that's still
only-
2
it's only
lots.
2 lots. Just an outbuild, just an accessory structure.
So you're not counting this one?
No,
Okay.
it's not a residence, it'd just be an accessory structure.
But the other plan is going to utilize this as a lot, and this is a lot.
So there's a significant difference on paving between that and this one you're proposing tonight?
Yeah, a little bit, yeah. I think it ends up being another, probably another 100 feet of pavement. 100 feet of road. It goes from about 200 to 315, something like that.
Okay.
Right. Last comments or questions?
No.
We ready to vote on it?
Do we have a good list of what all the waiver requests are? Do we know
Yeah,
what
let's
they
just go
are?
over that real quick. So John, I want to make sure I've got everything. The waiver requests involve a waiver of to Section 4E drainage to allow the use of subsurface drainage systems. Section 5N to allow the use of concrete bounds rather than granite monuments. Request for construction of a hammerhead in lieu of a cul-de-sac. A request, I'm not sure how to word this, but grading on the north entry shoulder of the road. It's going to be, you said it's not going to be conform to our regulations?
That's the way I...
That's the way I saw you pointed out on the map. So it would be the north entry shoulder side.
Is it the
I think that's,
4B,
I
3A?
think it's 5.
Oh, where is that?
It was laid out for you tonight.
5K, I think.
In one of the memos?
Here's one.
Thank you.
Gary, help me.
Oh, okay. Derek?
Okay, thank you, Mary, this is great. All right, and then, so the 4B2E reserve, the other waivers would be the 4B2E reserve strips, the 4B3A roadway design table.
Well, he's not asking for that.
Okay, so we take that one out.
So that's gone.
That's gone. I already mentioned the cul-de-sac.
So the roadway with the 18-foot, that's in there, Bill? He's not
Yes.
asking for a waiver on that, he's going to go the 18.
Right, that comes
Okay,
out.
okay.
So we're looking at, again, subsurface drainage system proposal, the use of concrete versus granite bounds,
And that would be concrete at the private way,
Yeah.
but granite along the public way?
reserve strips, and the hammerhead in lieu of the cul-de-sac.
And then on the next page, there's
Okay, then the drainage, detention basins, grass plots, and then slide slopes. Did it cover it all?
Well,
Those are the ones that I found that they didn't request, that I think they would.
Yeah, they weren't requested, but they're needed, in your opinion.
But what are we doing about the radius of the entrance exit onto Cushing Street?
The way that's set up, typically your pavement would come tangent, the radius would be tangent, but because there's a driveway here, see this?
Yep.
I mean, this is not a good thing.
No.
I don't know if this is an easement, I mean, I guess if they own it, I don't know what you can do.
Which property do they own?
Well, they own, I believe, like this.
Because even just merging,
Even if you merged them
like
here.
the first 20 feet or
I know, even
something.
if you merged it here, and then they went like that. I know, because it's going to, you put a blinker on which one you turn it into, it's one of those things, you avoid.
The only reason I think it's a problem is because I live with that kind of a driveway, and it's a constant, and I'm in a very slow 15-mile-an-hour zone. I think when you're in an area that's a lot faster, that it presents a little bit of a tricky thing.
I don't know
if there's-
what the rights are within the easement. The other option would be to potentially, widen out the entrance to make it so that it's one, push it over a little bit, but then you get the alignment here. That's I mean, if you have rights to come in here, you could come in and then turn up.
Then you don't align with that.
Or can you
Then
just,
you don't align with that lane, so the question is, which is more important?
Lining up with that lane.
so what do you think should happen there? What treatment are you giving that end of the roadway?
Personally, I'd like to see them eliminate the driveway and come in off this way. That's my, I'm going to recommend that we go talk to that butter and see that he's willing to give up his driveway.
So this is a preliminary plan?
Yes, this is, yeah.
But we have to vote on it.
So we vote on it, but then what happens? You go back and make changes and come back in again?
Come back and submit
For
it.
definitive. So the board needs to vote and give some indication if there's things that you are not supportive of at all.
What are the side slopes issues?
The side slope issues is just that if you, the way I read the regs, it refers to the typical cross-section, which shows essentially shoulders and then slopes outside the right-of-way limit. But in this case, there's only a 1-foot strip with which to grade. I guess there's an easement, but there's also the other thing is,
Because it's flat.
do you need for a, you got a 40-foot right-of-way with an 18-foot road. Do you need an 8 or 9-foot shoulder for that or not? And that's, for a 2-lot subdivision. I mean, if this, well, it's actually, if they could get everything together, it would almost be a 4-lot subdivision, although the 2 of them exist. 4 houses would serve off of the driveway. How much shoulder do you need for putting snow, for somewhere to walk down if it's, say, if you need 8 feet? I don't have the reg in front of me, so I can't say how wide it is in the reg, but.
Is that a precedent-setting issue?
It seems to me that if you were to have the driveway access, the Fulham's driveway access off of this cul-de-sac roadway, and that would then mitigate in the depth of the existing lot, it would mitigate that side yard grading problem. So you basically kill 2 birds with 1 stone doing that. And then you'd have one radius point coming off Cushing Street, and the driveway in Beck Lane would be on the same center line.
Yeah.
So it seems to me you'd get everything if you made that one change.
Except that you'd be making that house non-conforming,
No.
wouldn't you, with the front yard?
No, you're not going to change the right-of-way.
You're gonna keep the reserve strip?
If you want this to happen, to go forward the way it's shown, what you would have to do is maintain the reserve strip and put an easement across that reserve strip for some distance. You could make it a very large distance if you wanted to, for that lot to access. I mean, you could have a reserve, you could then have an easement from here to here if you wanted to. It's just that you can't, if you put the property as one, they will have a violation.
So you'd
I
still-
believe you can access it over an easement because there's an easement for access.
But then you have issues with plowing and that kind of
That's what I
thing,
was
which
thinking.
really, is a real commitment for the property owners to now be all dependent on one another for the plow.
And that's something that people don't know. But right now, it looks like the first 2 are sharing a driveway for part of it anyway.
Right.
And then sometimes that creates issues.
Yeah.
Well, they're in a common, they're on a common drive now.
Right, so they already share.
So they're already sharing it, yeah. And now it'd just be, they.
Back in February.
The one thing about this is that, the one thing that this does do is that it now creates the requirement for an association. Because essentially now both homes are going to be accessing the roadway. So the roadway before, one of the benefits of it was that it was going to be pure ownership under the back lot.
Oh.
So now we are going to create, there is going to be an association associated with the roadway, so that the cost associated with this will be shared. Essentially before, it was just going to be a single.
That seems better for the guy in the back.
Yeah, it is much better for the guy in the back now.
If you are going to do that, I would recommend that you remove the driveway from Cushing Street to the existing house, though.
We'll talk it over with him.
The Board of Health in February sent us a letter with a number of concerns, but the first one, I think, is the only one that kind of applies to us, which it says, the Board of Health requests that the applicant be required to provide sidewalks to provide residents with a safe option to maintain an active and healthy lifestyle. Have you spoken to the Board of Health?
Well, in my mind, this is.
But the septic issue might be a significant one. Our neighbor was talking about the distance that the septic might have to be from the house.
Yeah, it's
I don't know why it's on the Board of Health.
So one of the septics will, that one septic that's actually currently located right here will continue to be utilized.
Right, but the back one.
The back one will be, but the setback requirements from the wetland are 100 feet, so. certainly.
And you're on the Board of Health's March 25th agenda? Or are you? No, I don't know, I'm asking.
That's what the letter says.
Yeah.
Oh, it does?
Yeah.
Oh, all right. I guess I...
Put in your calendar.
But that's from Mary, so,
I mean, I thought it was premature with the Board of Health because we still hadn't agreed on the license.
but this is Mary, she says, I believe, so I don't know.
No, this is Bruce Kenton.
Oh, Bruce said it too, huh?
Okay.
All right, well then, I would entertain a waiver that we act favorably on plans entitled Option 2, 249 Cushion Street, preliminary subdivision, dated February 24th, 2014, with the following requested waivers. Waiver to 4E, subsurface drainage system being proposed. Waiver to 5N, use of concrete versus granite bounds. Waivers that are going to be needed based on the board's opinion but not requested would be B2E for reserve strips, B4B, a cul-de-sac, proposal of a hammerhead in lieu of a cul-de-sac, 4E, detention basins, 5K, grass plots, and 5M, side slopes. Did that cover everything?
Just one quick little clarification, Bill. I just did want to make sure we got the granite bounds on the public way
Yeah, I said concrete for granite bounds.
versus the concrete's on the private way and the granite's on the public way on Cushing Street.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Okay, all right. Yeah.
Does someone move that motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? And all this obviously, so I think we make it subject to approval by the Board of Health, right?
Oh, we'll come back to you.
You're going to come back to us,
And
right?
it requires Concom as well.
Good luck.
So you have work.
Good luck and everything.
Work ahead of you.
All right. And sir, thanks, we appreciate your input. Mr. Moranis? Thank you. Thank you very much for coming in tonight. All right, so next on the agenda is, we don't need to discuss South Hingham Working Group. We discussed that last week.
Nope.
So would be the minutes of February 24th, 2014. Is there... Okay, all right.
Judy, is the date, Judy, of the next meeting, is it the 18th of March?
19th.
For the South Hingham Committee?
March 18th and April 8th.
March 18th and April 8th.
Real quickly, if you want to, it's up to
Okay,
you.
I don't, do they,
It's in the, yeah,
so March 18th and April 8th.
Tuesdays.
So what do we have under...
So under old new business was a quick discussion about subdivision for small properties, subdivision regulations. I think that Judy wanted to bring that back up.
I think given it's 9:30, obviously...
You want to put that off?
Can we schedule for another meeting? Yeah.
Okay.
I think we should, because obviously we're seeing now that the...
I think the economy's reviving and we're seeing more and more of these and they're just, you know, our rules and regs were meant for real subdivisions, not for 2 and 3 lot subdivisions. And so it would be great if I know we started the conversation, so I think we've made some headway, but.
I don't know that we've made any headway, but we started the
We started, yes, well, that's headway,
Do
starting.
you want to look at a couple of precedents on that to frame the discussion? Look at a couple of the smaller subdivisions we've done in the last 2 years, three of them maybe, and use those as a format to evaluate?
It's a good idea.
Yeah, and
What
I
our
think,
vision is and what we...
well, and I think Katie had once, maybe it was you, Mary, I know somebody
Take one and pass it on.
put together a list for us of what other towns did, how they regulated it, remember? So I think that would be, if you can locate that and pull that out again, I thought that was pretty helpful also.
Okay, I'll look for that. That was pre-me.
And before we get to the, so I guess we'll put that for a date to be determined, Mary, when we have some time.
Sure, we'll do.
And so before we get to our next item, well, it's on my mind, so tomorrow we have advisory. Is anybody planning, obviously I'll be there as chairman.
Yeah, I was going to go. What I did want to do,
We're on at 8:30, I think.
and I didn't get a chance to print this, but there was the language on the South Street parcels that's going, the warrant article language that's going in front of the advisory. The advisory committee rep wrote it, and I just wanted to pull it up and see if there's any objections to it. Take me a second.
Well,
I think, did everybody get that?
Everybody got, I think everybody got this.
Thank you, John.
I know everybody, I know I was sent
Assignments.
the language of medical marijuana, because that's the one did you look at it, Gary? Do you have any problems?
I didn't have any problems with that one, but I was,
I know that was all vetted by Susan, so I'm sure it's fine.
Well, the language for the South Street one was the one that you opened, and you adopted the new language based upon Susan's draft
okay.
for the actual vote. I didn't see the advisory
Well, I
comments,
just
Gary,
wanted
but
to,
if you want
let
to
me
send it
just
to
find
me.
it real quick, because I just want to make sure the language in the, here it is. I want to make sure that the language in the advisory comment is what we voted or
The
represented.
advisory comment is the advisory's language,
No, I mean, that it's,
Well, we voted to keep it in residential A.
when you read that, is that consistent? I just got it this afternoon, so I was not able to.
Yeah, if you want to forward it to me, I'll
forward
compare
to you,
it
and then-
tomorrow.
Could you, and then just
yeah.
before the meeting, I just want to make sure that there aren't any surprises. Not that
Yeah,
there would be, but.
Mapping error, I mean, it was voted to keep them, we'll move them to A. Opposed to residency, it was based on a mapping error, that's why they were in D, right?
Right, so it takes them out of D
Yeah,
and puts them in
and
A.
D is multifamily, A is single family.
Do you be aware there'll be some opposition to that one, Gary? You know, in the town meeting, I think.
So with potential opposition, be prepared to speak.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'll send this to you right now.
I'll take a look at it with, and I'll show it to Susan as well, or send it to
That's fine.
Susan and me at the
That's
same
fine. I
time.
just want to make sure going into it that there isn't anything.
Because the mapping error was actually that it was shown as official and open space, and that it was supposed to be shown as residence D.
Right.
The map shows it as the official and open space. And so, it's a little unclear. We'll take a look at
So
that.
you're going to be there tomorrow night, Gary? You said?
Yes.
Judy, are you going to be there? Sorry, going to be there tomorrow night?
I'm going to Housing Authority, not to advisory.
All right, so do we need to post a meeting tomorrow night if Walter comes?
Be too late to post.
Be too late to post? I don't know if Walter's going to come or not, but,
The advisory's already posted, right?
yeah, but when you have a quorum of the board.
Ah,
think
I
it's
see what
supposed to
you're
post.
saying.
That's why I thought of it when I was driving over here tonight. But,
Well, you're planning on going, Bill, right?
yes,
And Gary, you're planning on going.
I just don't know if Walter's going to go or not. I don't think he is.
Yeah, he hadn't said that he was, so if just you and Gary are
You know what,
going, I
can you
think that
just
you're
email him in
okay.
tomorrow and see if he's going to go? And if he's going to go, just let me know and we'll address it.
Okay.
Okay. And then I guess the last item is the issue you had, Mary.
I just wanted to put on the board's radar that there is a use variance that has been applied for from the Zoning Board of Appeals. It's on their agenda for March 19th, and it's for, is there an extra map?
Yep.
If anybody wants, we have an extra map. It's for 74 Abington Street. This is the property that's right across from the South Shore Collaborative where the water main went through, or the right of location went through.
Say again where it is?
74 Abington Street, across the street from the South Shore Collaborative School.
Okay.
Okay? And there was a grant of location for a water main to go under the road to serve those properties.
Okay.
The properties are zoned industrial, and in fact, in 2008, the planning board approved a site plan for a 15,000 square foot industrial building on this property. It's approximately 10.22 acres, and it's in the industrial park in South Hingham Development Overlay District. It does have floodplains and wetlands involvement.
Is that John Barry? Did he propose that? Do you have any idea?
It was Scenic View Investments, and Mr. Cox is involved in that project. And so the application for a use variance is to allow residential use on this property. And I know that in the past, sometimes the planning board would talk about things and send advisory comments, and I wanted this at the very least on the board's radar, and put it out there for your discussion.
So just one more time, the drainage, the South Shore Educational Collaborative is 75 Abingdon Street?
It is across the street. Is it 75? Yeah, I think it goes as 75 Abington in the table I was doing today, but its mailing address is 105 Research
Right,
Road.
but where the exit from that site is right there, where it says map 206, lot 12, right? 75 Abingdon Street.
Right,
Okay.
Fox Rock.
So they're requesting a use variance.
And what's
They
the
could do a
current?
zoning change, right?
Yeah, use variance seems pretty tough.
I mean,
When was the last time the ZBA granted a use variance?
they did a few years ago, actually.
It hasn't been in a while, right?
They used to for spas, for workout facilities in industrial parks.
But this is like a zone.
This is zoning.
More zoning use variance, yeah.
Well, truly, probably.
Yes, that was too, but different.
So this is the industrial park. Can you do residential in the industrial park without a zoning?
No, normally you would do a zone change.
That's what I'm thinking. Why would we do a variance?
The applicant has the right to request a use variance from the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Do we know that this is in the South Hingham Overlay District, or is it across the street from the South Hingham Overlay District?
The information I have is that it is in it, and it is in the industrial park as well. And I met with the applicant last week, and they were trying to explain the application to me and let me know about it. And my initial reaction was that this is directly across the street from the 43D district, which is going for expedited permitting for intensive industrial development, theoretically.
But why, if the 43D included the South Shore Park, why aren't these
This is across the
properties
street.
in the 43D?
These properties are not.
Why?
These two, they're right across the street.
So they're not in the South Shore Park?
These are not in the South Shore Park. They're across Abington Street.
And are they in the overlay district?
Yes.
They are.
They're in the overlay district, not in the South Shore Park?
Correct.
Not in the 43D?
Correct.
Thank you.
However, my initial reaction was that all the markers within the discussions throughout town were that this area was going towards more industrial development. And so I did advise the applicant about that.
To think about proposing a zoning change for the future.
Well, that would be typically the process.
Is there any residential use nearby?
There is some spotty residential use across the street on Abington, some older houses, and even along the same side of Abington Street, if you picture the side of the street where the school is, there are a couple of houses that are, tenants are still living there. Probably as they'll start to turn over, they'll go to industrial. There's actually another house right across the street from this that we have someone looking at to convert to industrial use. It's a non-conforming structure. So my purpose to bring this up to the planning board is to put it on your radar, let you know about it, and then determine if you wanted to leave it at that, or did the board, want to make any comment or not.
It just seems to me that it should be a zoning change if they want to apply for it rather than a variance.
But I think all of us would agree it would probably best be a zoning change. But I don't know, do we need to comment on it?
It's the planning board's discretion. As you saw at the high school fields hearings, somebody got up and read a memo that the planning board had sent, an advisory memo to the zoning board when someone was in requesting a height variance on something. So it is not unheard of for the planning board to send an advisory memo to the zoning board, but it's not, certainly not required. It's
I'd be comfortable with sending something forward, just saying that this seems more appropriate for a zoning change rather than a use variance, but, I'm not on the zoning board.
I would give the zoning board our opinion, which would inform them to some degree.
Did they ask for our opinion?
We send out, I did get an email actually from the zoning administrator asking for staff comments and planning board comments as she sent them out to DPW and Concom. So actually, we did get a request.
I mean, they benefit with our comments.
Did you
wouldn't they?
comment? Or did the HCIC
That's what I
comment?
think, we were discussing it tonight, we wanted some additional information within the production area.
Yeah, I mean,
We felt similar to you as a other group.
It's 10.22 acres, and then complicating it, part of Old Pine Street has been abandoned, so if the zoning board were to approve a use variance, the next thing would be that the applicant would come in with an A&R. However, it's questionable if they have the required frontage, because Old Pine Street was discontinued, at least in part, and it's not constructed there. So it's not, there's other steps to come that are...
I propose that we send a memo to the ZBA saying that given the objectives of the South Hingham Overlay District and the considerable change in use that residential represents, that we would recommend that this be sent to town meeting.
That seems too specific, but whatever.
Or whatever. Or that it be,
This is more consistent
with the zoning change.
as a zoning
Yeah.
change rather than use variance. I think
That's what I would
that's
say, yeah. I would agree.
is there a second for that?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I'm opposed to it. I don't think they asked for it. I don't know if we need to send it to them, but... I mean, I think if the ZBA, if the ZBA members said, can we add zoning board, can we get zoning, PB input, then I'd be for it, but I don't know that.
Yeah, they didn't ask it, they did not
But
ask
Emily
at
asked
a
for staff
formal meeting.
comments, so she asked your opinion.
She emailed for the planning
doesn't
board
matter,
and
but yeah.
conservation, but it wasn't, you're correct, it was not the 3 board members officially saying, Emily, go pull the planning board,
That's good.
which is true.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn?
Thank you. Motion to
Adjourn,
adjourn.
Robert moved.
So
Second.
moved.
All right.
Aye.
Done.
Thanks for coming tonight. Dick, thanks for coming.